At midnight, Rikudo watched the students chatting from the top of a building. He only wanted to end this foolish game. A man who had once beaten him shouted that Rikudo had failed to clean again, pointing out the mess on the floor. Rikudo looked at him. The man grew angry and demanded how he dared stare back. Then he kicked him. He reminded Rikudo that cleaning was his job, since they had raised him after his parents died. A woman watching smiled cruelly, saying it was no surprise considering the kind of parents he had. They were awful adoptive parents. Opening the door to another room, Rikudo found a boy who took the blame for the mess. The boy then deliberately spilled soda on the floor. He claimed this was Rikudo's responsibility. Approaching the already battered Rikudo, the boy mocked him, pretending to be kind while teasing him further. When Rikudo arrived at school, his desk was covered in scribbles with a vase of flowers on it. Students laughed and whispered behind his back. The teacher, seeing the desk, began scolding him and asking what he had done. Later in the hallway, 3 classmates shoved him against the lockers, insulted him, and demanded that he pay them 2,000 yen every day. Rikudo clenched his fists but could not fight back. One boy kicked him in the stomach. Then he punched him in the face. As the beating went on, they called him pathetic and told him to ask his parents for money. While being hit, Rikudo thought that life was trash and everyone in it was trash, but he was worse than all of them. When they finally stopped, his phone fell to the ground. One bully stepped on it, cracking the screen. He then mocked him with a fake apology. As Rikudo lowered his head, the bully lifted his leg to stomp again. But someone stopped him. It was Nishi, the star of the school's Western-style archery team and recent winner of the national tournament. Students were shocked, and the girls were charmed, even commenting on how admirable it was that he was helping someone like Rikudo. Nishi gripped the bully's shoulder until it hurt. Another boy grabbed a baseball bat to attack him, but Nishi punched him before he could swing. With the attacker on the ground, Nishi said it was unpleasant to see things like this. He ordered them to leave. The bullies left, muttering. Nishi crouched beside Rikudo and asked if he was still alive. He told him to fight back, explaining they only acted that way because Rikudo did nothing. He questioned how Rikudo could call this living. Rikudo turned his back, asking what Nishi could possibly know. Nishi was surprised that Rikudo could still stand after such a beating. He wondered if he had taken less damage than it seemed. Perhaps he had dodged blows at the last second. Then he dismissed the idea, thinking this wasn't a movie. Back in the present, Rikudo sat on the rooftop, watching students laugh and play below. He stared at his broken phone, feeling both sad and angry. Looking up, he thought it was all over, that he was tired of living with this pain. He climbed the fence and reached the edge. He spread his arms, ready to end it. But lightning suddenly lit up the sky. Circles appeared within the bolts, and streams of binary code descended toward the city, destroying buildings. Phones began making strange noises, frightening their owners. They dropped them. Rikudo was confused. It had been clear whether a moment ago. Looking at the students, he saw one of them scream as their phone displayed binary code. The code formed a bubble that grew larger. It eventually became a terrifying monster. Soon, dragons, goblins, and other beasts emerged from every student's phone and began chasing them. From the rooftop, Rikudo heard cries for help. He saw students being attacked one by one. He could not understand what was happening as hordes of monsters filled the school grounds. All over the world, society collapsed in an instant. It was believed that less than 1/10 of the global population remained. The cause was unknown until a group of young people discovered the truth. The monsters came from people's smartphones. In the world that followed, survivors called it the Day of Judgment. Sitting on the school rooftop railing, Rikudo wondered if it was true. Were monsters from fantasy worlds suddenly wiping out humanity? Smiling, he thought he had finally put an end to it. Below, people screamed for help as they were attacked. He felt satisfied, thinking that those who had insulted or mocked him deserved it. Still smiling, Rikudo wondered how this dream felt so real, even involving people he did not know. He questioned why it was lasting so long. His life had been miserable, his parents gone, everyone around him cruel, even his brother. He told himself none of it mattered. Yet he admitted it was still wrong for people to end up like this. Lost in thought, he heard the terrace door open. A goblin entered, carrying a severed head. In that instant, he realized it was not a dream. This was real. The goblin lunged at him with its weapon, and he fell from the railing to the terrace floor. Terrified, he saw the head again and thought it was the end. Part of him did not care. He had already planned to end his life. Life was trash and the world was nothing. But now, he realized he did not want to die like this. He did not want it to end at all. Grabbing an iron bar, he blocked the goblin's attack. The monster knocked him down, but he thought about how pathetic and meaningless real death was. That only made him resist harder. Shouting that he did not want to die, he fought back. Humans sometimes enter a state known as the zone, where concentration reaches its peak, and both body and mind move with perfect control. In that moment, Rikudo struck the goblin between the legs, knocking it down. In the zone, a person can see the world clearly and act instinctively in the best way possible. With the goblin on the ground, Rikudo struck it again with the iron bar. Rikudo stared at the fallen goblin, shocked at what he had done. He vomited. Then he screamed in despair. For the first time, he truly felt he wanted to live. He awoke to someone asking how he was. It was Neishi, who smiled and said Rikudo's bleeding head had worried him. Recognizing the archer, Rikudo stood, but Nishi told him not to overdo it. Looking through the fence, Rikudo saw the city in flames. Some students sat nearby, pale and frightened. They included Takeda, Tani, and Arata, the bullies who had attacked him. Sakura said the situation was impossible. The PE teacher, with his arm around her, told her he would protect her. Other girls whispered about him. They said he was looking at her in a disturbing way. Rikudo noticed a pile of objects. Nishi explained they had built a barricade from whatever they could find to keep the monsters away. Survivors had fled to the rooftop, setting it up. From the other side of the barricade, voices pleaded for help. But the PE teacher and another student refused to open it. Soon all they could hear were screams. Nishi admitted feeling guilty for not opening the barricade, but he believed they would have died if he had. Rikudo told him it was not his fault, no one wanted to meet such an end, and that he had done everything to survive. Looking at the dead goblin, Nishi asked if Rikudo had killed it. He said he had never considered trying such a thing himself, and thought that with that determination, he might have saved the others. Then screams drew their attention. The PE teacher told everyone to check the situation with the monsters and the phones. Sakura showed her phone, which no longer worked. Another student confirmed theirs was also dead. Rikudo's was still broken. The teacher realized they could not call for help. Rikudo wondered aloud why no monster had come from his phone, perhaps because it was broken. The PE teacher suggested they stay put and wait for rescue from the police or defense forces. Rikudo questioned this, pointing out that if monsters had come from phones, they were likely everywhere, not just in the school. With phones so common, especially in Japan, the whole world was probably in the same state. He doubted any rescue forces were still operational. Students began to panic. Nishi asked if they should look for a safer place. Rikudo said they should, unless they wanted to end up like the others. Tani suddenly stood and shouted, asking why someone as pathetic as Rikudo was giving orders. He grabbed Rikudo by the collar, saying he needed to be taught a lesson. Rikudo did not respond, just stared at him, making the bully uneasy. Rikudo wondered what had happened to make this boy talk such nonsense. The other students agreed with Takeda and began insulting Rikudo. Nishi and Sakura tried to calm the crowd. Takeda mocked Rikudo, asking if he was too scared to speak. But Rikudo only thought about how small and harmless the bully seemed compared to the monster lying on the ground. Trying to provoke him further, Takeda demanded something from Rikudo. Rikudo replied that he should stop bothering him with meaningless things because it was annoying. Everyone was stunned. Cursing, Takeda tried to punch him, but Rikudo grabbed his arm, caught him by the neck, and slammed him to the ground. The crowd was shocked by this sudden reaction. Pinned to the ground, Takeda complained about the pain and begged to be released, calling the situation absurd and wondering how he had ever feared someone like this. He then started hurling insults and threats, but Rikudo pressed him harder against the floor. Nishi grabbed Rikudo's arm to stop him, worried he would seriously injure Takeda. He wondered if this was really the same person who had once been bullied so easily. Students whispered in disbelief. Once Takeda stood up, he kept cursing, but Nishi angrily told him this was not the time for fights, forcing him to back down. Nishi told Rikudo to let it go, and Rikudo agreed. Facing the group, Rikudo said what mattered now was deciding their next move, not wasting time on petty fights. The bully continued his insults. Then the teacher interrupted, asking if they could return to the discussion. Nishi explained that the rooftop had nothing useful, and rescue might never come. They needed a safe location, food, and water. Rikudo added that weapons would be necessary if possible. Sakura asked if such a place existed, and Nishi admitted that was the real problem. Rikudo suggested they first check inside the school to see if it was even possible to travel. One student objected, saying it was too dangerous and that monsters could be nearby. The teacher agreed they should at least check the hallway, but the students refused, asking who would risk walking among monsters. The teacher called on Rikudo and Takeda to go check. Takeda protested, saying the teacher should set an example, but the teacher insisted he needed to stay and protect the students. Some of the girls agreed and told the boys to go, which made Takeda lash out at them. Rikudo picked up the iron pipe he had used to kill the monster and moved toward the barricade. A frightened student asked if he was serious. Rikudo replied that staying there would only lead to starvation or being eaten. They had no choice but to move. Encouraged, Nishi grabbed his gear and said he would go too, hoping to find other survivors. The PE teacher warned that if anything happened to them, it would be their responsibility. The girls shouted for them not to go because it was dangerous. Rikudo called the teacher a hypocrite and remarked that he was glad Nishi was coming, since the Chihuahua clearly was. Takeda froze in confusion at the nickname, trembling like a small dog. Rikudo asked if Nishi was sure, reminding him that this was a dangerous mission with a high chance of being attacked. Nishi smiled and said he had a reason to survive. He recalled the image of a girl at a window. Rikudo told him he seemed dependable. Nishi replied that Rikudo must be as reckless as he was. Realizing they did not even know each other's names, they introduced themselves and shared a few jokes. Then they passed through the barricade together. Rikudo and Nishi walked through a corridor littered with bodies. Nishi said it felt like a nightmare, but Rikudo replied that this was reality. Nishi wondered where the monsters had gone, though he wasn't complaining. Rikudo guessed they had left the school to hunt elsewhere, since there weren't many people here. Nishi admitted it made sense, but found it grim to hear. Partway through their conversation, they both heard a slapping sound from a distant hallway. They moved cautiously to the edge. Nishi peeked around the corner and saw a lone goblin. They silently agreed they could handle it. Nishi took out his bow. He aimed carefully. Then he shot the goblin in the back, the arrow piercing its chest. The resilient creature didn't fall. It turned and spotted him. Then it charged with frightening speed. Before it could reach Nishi, Rikudo intercepted it, smashing its head with the iron pipe and knocking it down. The goblin tried to recover, but Rikudo stepped in front of it and struck repeatedly until it stopped moving. Nishi approached, commenting on Rikudo's brutality. He scanned the area and confirmed there were no more monsters nearby. Rikudo said some creatures, like the dragons he had seen earlier, were beyond human ability to fight. Nishi agreed and noted how much these monsters resembled ones from video games, pointing out the goblin they had just defeated. Rikudo admitted he felt he had seen them somewhere before. Nishi began trembling at the thought that a single hit could have killed him. He clenched his fist, saying that unlike games, this was real life. No leveling up, no cheats, no magic, only ordinary humans. He told Rikudo he clearly wasn't a beginner and asked if he had training. Rikudo remembered training with his brother in one-on-one fights, but he said he had never been trained. Nishi asked why he had let bullies push him around despite his skill, but Rikudo said he didn't really know. They moved on, passing a corridor with several bodies inside. Then they headed for the stairs. Rikudo reminded Nishi of their mission, to assess the situation. Nishi added that they needed to count survivors and find escape routes. The most important thing, Rikudo said, was to return alive with information, and in danger, it was acceptable for anyone to save themselves. Nishi joked that Rikudo was trying too hard to act tough. Before they could continue, a cry for help echoed from the floor below. Rikudo froze. Then he bolted down the stairs. Nishi followed, thinking he now knew the kind of person Rikudo really was, someone who would never abandon others. On the lower floor, they saw a monster walking around. It carried a massive iron club, looked like a goblin but was larger and had horns. Takebana was hiding in a cabinet, trying not to make a sound. Through a small gap, she saw goblins stripping her classmates while they cried for help. She wanted to help but couldn't move. One classmate begged the goblin to stop, but it went into a frenzy and attacked her. Takebana shut her eyes and covered her ears, falling into panic and apologizing to herself for always doing nothing and running away. She remembered watching Rikudo being beaten by bullies in the past, thinking she should intervene. Trembling, she had tried to speak up, but before she could, the blonde-haired bully kicked Rikudo in the face. She apologized again in her mind. Then she recalled Seidu putting a hand on her shoulder and telling her class was about to start. Barely reacting, she was pulled away, leaving Rikudo on the ground. Takebana awoke inside the cabinet, realizing she had fainted from the stress. She panicked, wondering what had happened to the others and how long she had been there. Reaching for her phone, she accidentally dropped it. The clatter echoed through the room. The noises outside grew louder, then went silent. Anxious and trembling, she wondered if the goblins had noticed her. The cabinet doors suddenly swung open. She saw the room filled with bodies, her friend Misaki among them. A goblin grabbed her by the hair and yanked her out. It started to tear her clothes as she screamed for help. Another monster appeared and struck the goblin with a single blow, killing it instantly. The remaining goblins surrounded this new creature, but it destroyed them all in one attack. Still in shock, Takebana screamed as loudly as she could for someone to save her. Upstairs, Rikudo and Nishi heard her voice and began running toward the sound. The large monster held the girl in one hand. It dragged the tied-up bodies of goblins through a corridor. She apologized and begged to be released, but the creature became angry and slammed her against the wall, knocking her unconscious. From a distance, Rikudo and Nishi watched. Nishi grew uneasy, doubting his arrows could harm something like that. Rikudo said his instincts told him exactly what this monster was. He asked Nishi if he had found it strange that the previous floor had so few monsters. The reason, he explained, was that this creature was a predator that hunted goblins. It was stronger, more territorial, and far higher in the food chain. Facing it alone would be hopeless. Nishi, concerned for the girl, froze when he saw Rikudo preparing to move toward the monster. He asked what Rikudo was doing. Rikudo replied that he was going to save her because she was still alive. Nishi warned him that doing so was suicide. He questioned whether Rikudo was acting out of self-satisfaction or some misguided sense of justice, risking his life without thinking clearly. Rikudo reminded him of when Nishi had asked if he felt alive. He said that facing death at the hands of this monster made him realize he wanted to live, and that he would never let himself fall that way again. Saving the girl, he said, was something he wanted to do because it proved he was alive. Nishi thought this was madness and asked if dying foolishly like this was what Rikudo considered living. Rikudo told him he didn't need to come along, it was his own problem. In his mind, he recalled his brother Serrano calling him incompetent, penniless, and alone, claiming he was already dead and should act like it. Rikudo felt pity for that memory, but vowed never to live as if he were already dead again, even if it destroyed him. Nishi stopped him, gripping his shoulder. He revealed he had a younger sister, not related by blood, who studied at another school. He said he did not want to die either, because then she would be left alone. Leaving the girl now, he explained, would be shameful, and if his sister were in danger, he would have to help her. Running away with excuses would haunt him forever. That was why he would help Rikudo face the monster and rescue the girl. Rikudo commented that the two of them were about to do something reckless for selfish reasons, and asked if Nishi was fine with that. Nishi answered that a man needed to keep his pride. With that, they began planning. Nishi asked how they would approach the fight, since charging in directly was too dangerous. Rikudo said he had an idea, but it would require Nishi to fight as well. They began working out the details. Meanwhile, the girl awoke. She found herself tied to a wooden plank alongside several goblins. The monster was roasting them over a fire like skewers. While eating, the creature noticed she was awake. Terrified, she screamed. Thanks to the sound, the two young men realized where to look for her. As they ran, Nishi remarked that after hearing Rikudo's plan, he was convinced his companion was completely out of his mind. The girl, in despair, thought she would never make it out alive and would be burned and eaten. Crying, she repeated to herself that she did not want to die. The monster noticed she was moving again and came closer. Knocking her down, it picked up the wooden plank to which she was tied. Then it began carrying her toward the flames. Just then, she saw Rikudo at the doorway telling her to shut her eyes. The monster dropped the plank. It reached for its iron club as it approached him. Rikudo pulled out a fire extinguisher. He sprayed it into the monster's face, blinding it temporarily. While it was distracted, Rikudo rushed to the girl. He began untying her. She called his name, but he said he did not know her and was only helping. In her mind, she thought it was obvious he didn't remember her and wondered why he would. When his knife failed to cut the ropes, Rikudo switched to his backup plan. He banged his iron pipe against the floor, a signal for Nishi. The archer realized with disbelief that they were moving ahead with the crazy plan. Coming closer, Nishi admitted he wasn't confident but would try his best and asked not to be blamed if he failed. The monster, regaining its senses, saw Rikudo standing in front of the girl. It roared so loudly that it shattered the windows. Rikudo lifted the pipe as the creature raised its club. He knew one wrong move would end everything. Watching its attack pattern closely, he used a technique called Kiriatoshi to parry and redirect the strike to the side. He was both surprised and relieved it worked, thinking it had been a long time since he used that skill, but his muscle memory hadn't failed him. Rikudo stood, metal bar in hand, facing the demon-like monster. It swung at him suddenly, but he managed to defend himself. He shifted the angle of its blows instead of meeting them head-on, reducing the impact while countering with minimal force. Aiming low, he struck at its feet. It was a modern kendo technique, one his father had taught him long ago. Silently, Rikudo thanked his father for those lessons. The girl watched, thinking the fight was incredible. Rikudo reminded himself to stay calm. These were monsters without refined technique. The demon prepared another strike and swung at him with great force. Rikudo blocked, but the creature attacked relentlessly. Seeing an opening, he landed a precise hit on its wrist and noted that it relied entirely on brute force. Their fight grew more intense. The monster swung again with its spiked club, but its movements were wide and predictable. Rikudo managed to land a blow to its head, though he admitted it would have been easier against a human opponent. The monster staggered, screaming in pain. The girl was amazed he could withstand its attacks. Rikudo was starting to tire. Even though he defended himself well, the repeated impacts were wearing him down. He knew he could not keep this up for long. The monster regained focus, and Rikudo realized his best efforts weren't enough to overpower it. Deciding to fight defensively, he dodged while studying its movements. A frontal assault was impossible. He resolved to lure it for one final strike. From a distance, he shouted to get its attention. Smoke began to pour from its ears, a sign it was preparing another attack. The demon's gaze shifted to the girl, still tied to the plank. It lifted the wooden log she was bound to and advanced, using her as a weapon. She screamed as Rikudo realized how dangerous this had become. The monster swung the log violently. Outside, the sounds of battle echoed, furniture breaking, walls cracking. Rikudo dodged, keeping just ahead of its wild swings. He managed to escape the deadly arc of the weapon. The girl, left for a moment, felt a pang of hurt at being abandoned. Her mind flashed back to childhood, two boys bullying her as she cried in a corner. Someone had stepped in to defend her. It was Rikudo, asking why they were picking on her. In the present, she thought he had always been this way, risking himself for others. She cried, still tied to the log. Nishi, watching from outside the fight, said he was about to jump in. Seeing Rikudo holding his own, he was impressed, though he believed Rikudo was close to his limit. He told him to keep the monster busy for about 10 more meters. Quickening his pace, he approached the scene with a dark, determined look, saying he would end this. Rikudo kept running, drawing the monster along. At one moment, he turned and swung his iron bar with all his strength, but his grip failed. The demon's counterattack landed squarely, sending Rikudo flying. Rikudo lay injured on the ground, unable to move, while Takebana watched in horror. Nishi, who had come to help, also saw what had happened. Shouts for Rikudo's name echoed from all around. Nishi studied the situation, realizing it was dire. He remembered his friend's instructions. He would have only one chance to shoot at a single specific point, and if he missed, Rikudo would die. The angle, the distance, and the overall setup were far from ideal, but there was no more time to prepare. He waited, hoping the monster would step closer and turn just enough for a perfect shot. Rikudo, still on the ground, called out to him not to shoot yet. Nishi was confused. Rikudo insisted he needed the monster a few meters closer and told him to wait. Summoning what strength he had, he forced himself to his feet and faced the demon again. From the shadows, the hidden boy watched, while Takebana, still tied to the wooden plank, cried out Rikudo's name. The monster approached, and Rikudo coughed, hunching forward as though about to collapse. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees. Believing the fight was over, the demon's eyes began to glow, releasing bolts of lightning. Rikudo pushed himself upright once more, raising his iron bar to block. His legs trembled, and he wondered if he could keep luring the monster closer. The demon roared in fury, shaking the walls. Takebana begged him to run, convinced the creature would kill him. He told her not to worry about him. She shouted back that she did not deserve to be saved, admitting she had abandoned him before. In her mind, she relived a memory from school, watching Rikudo being beaten by bullies. She had thought about helping, even started to run toward them, but someone grabbed her shoulder and stopped her. It was a boy named Seidu, who told her not to get involved and simply follow what they had agreed. She had obeyed, walking away while Rikudo was still on the ground. In the present, she said she had always been a coward, tired of standing by and doing nothing. The monster attacked again, its roars rising to a fever pitch. Rikudo noticed its weapon had lost momentum, saw an opening, and struck. But the demon's counter came faster, sending Rikudo flying and leaving him injured. Takebana, still bound to the plank, was also thrown, hitting the ground hard. The demon closed in on Rikudo as he lay weak and motionless. In a faint voice, he signaled to Nishi that the target was now at the right distance. Nishi was already in position with his bow. He checked the angle one last time and promised himself he would not miss. The monster noticed him, shifting its attention away from Rikudo. Acting quickly, Nishi released the arrow. It flew straight into the demon's eye. 10 minutes earlier, Rikudo had handed Nishi a vial and told him to use it. Nishi recognized it as the same one Sakura had given them before entering the building, a container of pure ethanol meant for chemistry experiments. They remembered the blonde girl telling them it would come in handy. Inside the building, Rikudo explained his plan. Nishi was to coat the arrow in alcohol and shoot it into the demon's bloodstream. Even a small amount, he reasoned, would be enough to disable it. Nishi found the idea logical, but pointed out the arrow would not pierce the creature's thick skin. Rikudo replied that the target was the eye, a vulnerable spot. To confirm, he would spray the monster's face with a fire extinguisher. If it tried to protect its eyes, that would prove they were just as fragile as a human's. Rikudo would start the fight, Nishi would finish it. In the present, the arrow struck true. The demon roared in pain. Nishi celebrated, joking that he had hit the exact center of the target. The monster tore the arrow from its eye and charged at them, but it staggered as the alcohol began taking effect. With a final roar, it swung its weapon at Rikudo, disorienting him. Nishi realized the poison would not kill instantly. The demon pushed forward, smashing through walls and shattering glass. Rikudo saw it heading for a hole in the wall, and using the last of his strength, he grabbed it around the waist, trying to force it out. It was heavier than expected. Above him, the demon raised its weapon. Nishi ran in and also grabbed the monster. Together, they shoved it through the hole. The demon fell, dragging Rikudo with it. They plummeted, but Nishi managed to catch Rikudo midair, pulling him to safety. The demon hit the ground below, cracking the floor and breaking its horns. Takebana watched, relief flooding her face when she saw both were alive. Rikudo called out to Nishi, asking if he was crazy. Nishi, satisfied with saving his friend, grinned and brought up his first-place win at the national tournament. Rikudo laughed, thinking he was still disconnected from reality. Takebana, still tied, asked to be freed. Using a sharp rock, the boys cut her loose. Nishi asked if she was all right, but before he could finish, she walked past him. She hugged Rikudo, thanking him for saving her. Watching, Nishi teased Rikudo about risking everything for his girlfriend. Both Rikudo and Tachibana were caught off guard. Nishi kept joking. Then Tachibana explained they were not a couple. Confused, Rikudo asked who she was. Surprised, Tachibana said her name, Katun Tachibana, and reminded him they had gone to the same school. She said they used to call each other by nicknames. Hearing it, Rikudo's eyes widened as he remembered. Flashbacks came to him. Tachibana was someone he had wanted to protect, a battle he could not lose. He saw himself shoving a boy away from her. Then came the memory of the traffic accident, brakes failing, 2 bodies lying in the rain, himself crying over them. He remembered Seidu's cunning nature and how others had stolen everything from him. Somewhere during those events, he had died inside. Back in the present, Rikudo trembled, feeling unwell. Tachibana panicked, but he assured her he was fine. Nishi disagreed. Rikudo said he now remembered who she was, but admitted he had forgotten they were from the same school. Tachibana apologized for not speaking to him sooner, but he said it had been the right choice. Getting involved in his bullying would have helped no one. Nishi reminded them that the sun would set soon and asked Tachibana if she would join them. She agreed. The trio moved through the school. Tachibana paused to pray for a boy who had died. Nishi caught a small lizard that spat fire. They noticed the building was now quiet, no monsters in sight. Rikudo warned that smaller creatures might appear now that the larger one was gone. They secured the fire doors and blocked the route to the second floor. Finally, they headed to the rooftop, where 4 survivors were waiting. The group cheered their return, calling them Nishi's patrol. The PE teacher ran to Nishi, saying he had never lost faith in him. Another ran to Tachibana, hugging her. It was Seidu, thanking the heavens she was alive. When Tachibana called out Rikudo's name, Nishi noticed something unusual in the air. Nishi asked if the newcomer was someone Tachibana knew. The boy quickly introduced himself as Seidu Shinjiro, Tachibana's boyfriend. Sakura looked intrigued, while Tachibana grew embarrassed. Seidu reassured her, saying their parents approved of their relationship and that he was proud they had both survived. He thanked Nishi for saving Tachibana, but Nishi corrected him, saying Rikudo was the one who actually rescued her. Sakura was surprised to hear it and listened closely as the rooftop group continued their conversation. Seidu remarked that Nishi had said Rikudo easily defeated Takeda earlier and asked if it was really the same person. A flashback showed Rikudo being grabbed by the collar and mocked by bullies. Seidu thanked him for saving Tachibana, saying she had caused him many problems. Rikudo said it was no trouble. Seidu assured him that everything would be fine now, as he would protect her from here on. He asked Rikudo to leave Tachibana in his care. Seidu then took Tachibana aside, telling her to rest, but she insisted she had something to say to Rikudo. Meanwhile, they thanked Sakura for the ethanol she had given them, saying it had saved their lives. The archer added that the alcohol had worked because of the monster's biology, from oxygen content to its circulatory system. Nishi asked why she had such a container in the first place. But before she could answer, Jama-sensei interrupted, asking Rikudo to explain everything that had happened. After hearing the story, the group agreed the situation was still dangerous. Nishi reported that they had found no other survivors besides Tachibana, which was a bad sign. The teacher said the lower floors were secure thanks to closed fire doors and could serve as sleeping areas. Yama ordered everyone to gather supplies and set up a proper base, saying he would lead the effort. The students began organizing the shelter, each helping in some way. Rikudo was seen carrying bodies of the dead by himself. Tachibana said it was cruel of Yama to make him do it alone. But Rikudo answered that someone had to remove the corpses before they decomposed. She asked what he planned to do with them. He admitted it would be difficult to bury them all. He decided to take them to the rooftop, where they might find another way to dispose of them. Tachibana agreed to help. As Rikudo carried the bag of bodies, he recognized one as a former bully. He thought about how both the bullies and the negligent teachers deserved to die. If everyone like that were gone, maybe he could laugh again, but he realized he had not been able to laugh since everything had happened, and perhaps this was some kind of punishment. Tachibana called him a hero, both now and in the past. Surprised, Rikudo asked if she was sure she wanted to help, warning it was a disturbing task. She insisted it was something she could not turn away from. They continued together until someone called out to Rikudo. When he turned, Seidu attacked him. Tachibana was startled as her boyfriend, furious, demanded to know what Rikudo was doing with her. Grabbing Tachibana's arm, Seidu said she had no need to help with such a disgusting job. Rikudo lay on the ground, confused. Seidu mocked him, claiming Rikudo was trying to make Tachibana do his dirty work, and said he should be ashamed. Tachibana defended her friend, saying she had offered to help on her own. Seidu claimed she had been pressured because Rikudo had rescued her. Tachibana demanded to know what he meant. But Seidu ignored the question and said he would tell everyone what happened. Rikudo stayed silent, still unsure what was going on. Tachibana asked why her boyfriend was treating her friends so badly, but Seidu told her to be quiet. Rikudo told him he didn't care and could do as he pleased. Unable to provoke him, Seidu laughed nervously, saying Rikudo was good at bluffing even when on the verge of snapping. He pulled Takabana by the arm, saying she had no reason to be there. At that moment, Takabana pulled free, surprising everyone. She said she had endured enough. She admitted she had stayed polite because of her parents' social standing, but she could not take it anymore. Seidu said he thought they would be together forever. Takabana began crying. Rikudo told them to take their argument elsewhere so he could keep working. But Seidu told him to stay out of it. Takabana was shocked when Seidu spoke about protecting her, reminding him that he had once used her as a sacrifice to save himself. The truth came out in a flashback. When the monsters attacked, Takabana and Seidu had been in a hallway. She suggested they head to the rooftop, but on the way, he tripped her and left her behind. She barely escaped by hiding in a locker. In the present, Takabana said she could no longer trust him and wished they had never been together. She told him to forget her forever. Seidu, ignoring this, asked if she had feelings for Rikudo. He began to laugh, which worried Takabana. When she questioned him, he told her to be quiet and raised his hand to hit her. Before the blow landed, Rikudo caught his arm and calmly told them to let him work. Seidu remarked that Rikudo had always had a strange aura, even back when surrounded by thugs, and then asked why all the people who bullied him were now dead. Takabana told him he was going too far, but he scoffed. Rikudo asked him directly what the slander campaign against him was about. Seidu said it didn't matter and accused him of being dark. He tried to fight, but Rikudo refused, saying he would not harm a friend of Takabana's. Seidu lost his temper and attacked anyway. Seidu shouted at Rikudo to be quiet and attacked. With years of dojo training, Rikudo easily avoided the first punch and the following kick. Seidu realized that after facing a giant monster, nothing could shake him. His mental strength was immense. Another strike missed, and Seidu fell onto the bag of bodies, shocked to see a corpse inside. Rikudo mocked him, asking if he would help carry them. Enraged, Seidu grabbed a piece of wood. A loud sound drew everyone's attention. Nishi had arrived. Nishi asked what was happening. Rikudo said it was nothing, but Nishi disagreed. Sensing the tension, he asked Takabana if she was fine with it. Seidu brushed it off and left, walking past the archer. Nishi reflected on how Seidu excelled in both academics and sports, but was dangerously obsessed with Takabana. Rikudo asked why Nishi was there. Nishi said his work was done, so he had come to help, apologizing for leaving Rikudo to handle everything earlier. They exchanged a fist bump, and Takabana smiled at their friendship. They decided to take the bodies to the rooftop before discussing their next steps. Night eventually fell, and everyone gathered in the shelter. The teacher distributed a box of supplies, enough to last for a while. But many found Yama irritating. While Rikudo ate, Nishi said he was not hungry. Rikudo warned him that not eating would only make him weaker. Before more could be said, a scream rang out. It was Sakura, staring at her phone in confusion. She explained she had found a phone charger and tried to use it but failed. Nishi asked questions and learned the charger was still wrapped in its packaging, unused. They concluded that any phones the monsters had come from should be collected. Sakura was disappointed. She had hoped to get online for information. She wished she could use the internet. Takabana asked if the internet would even work without power. Sakura replied that it would, because this was a model city for advanced development, and it did not need external electricity. Nishi admitted he didn't understand but wanted to learn more. Sakura then said if she had a phone, a monster wouldn't come from it. One of the boys produced a phone, Rikudo. He explained it had been broken before the incident, so nothing had emerged from it. Nishi speculated that was the reason. Takabana noted her phone was the same model. Their friend remarked it was an old type they used to own. Sakura wondered aloud if it could be repaired, saying she was beginning to see a glimmer of hope. At the school, Nishi warned that if things continued at their current pace, the situation would only get worse, and the food supply would last only about 3 days. Rikudo added that their weapons were scarce, and his steel pipe was still better than most of what they had. Nishi summed up the problem by saying they were in serious trouble, but there was still hope. According to Kyuju, Rikudo's broken phone could be repaired using the right tools and parts from Takabana's device. Sakura, forcing a smile, said she could probably fix it, though others looked at her with concern. Rikudo, with a hint of sarcasm, thanked Takeda for breaking his phone in the first place. The school bully yelled, asking what good fixing it would do, but Nishi replied that repairing the phone would allow them to use the internet to learn more about the situation, contact other survivors, and locate emergency shelters. The idea gave the students a glimmer of hope. Takabana asked about the computers, and Sakura explained that, like the phones, they were all destroyed. Takabana found that strange, but Nishi said the terminals had been damaged when the monsters appeared, even if the devices were turned off. Sakura ran her hands through her hair, saying the phenomenon was giving her a headache. Nishi stayed focused, saying only the phone that had already been broken before the incident could still connect to the internet. He stressed that their top priority was contacting other lucky survivors like Rikudo. Rikudo agreed. Then, holding his steel pipe, he asked Sakura if the best place to find tools was the general discount store. Sakura seemed uncertain but said it was a good option. Two frightened girls joined in, urging everyone to go immediately for weapons and food. Sensei Yama shouted for them to stop, opposing the plan because it was too dangerous. Rikudo argued that if they didn't go, they would eventually succumb. The teacher insisted there was a chance of rescue before things got worse and reminded them there were monsters everywhere. Rikudo countered that the store was not far and if they went by car, the plan would work. He asked Yama to drive, but the teacher looked terrified. Nishi pressed the point, saying it was less dangerous than walking. Yama refused, insisting they stay put for their own good. Nishi thought the situation was a serious problem. At that moment, Takebana stood and said she could drive. Surprised, Nishi asked how, and she explained her grandfather had let her drive his truck on the farm when she was younger. Her boyfriend tried to stop her, but she told him to stay out of it. Rikudo warned her that even in the car it might not be safe. But Takebana said she didn't want to die without knowing what was really happening. Rikudo admired her determination and said they were counting on her. Her boyfriend grew angry. Yama slammed his fist into the chalkboard, shouting that he was in charge and they could not do whatever they wanted. Nishi tried to calm him, but the teacher told him to be quiet. Yama declared they should ration the food for a week and wait for rescue. Rikudo challenged him, saying there was no safe place. Blue slime suddenly dripped from the ceiling and landed on Tanny, who screamed for help as the monster began consuming him. Rikudo charged at it with his steel pipe, shouting that common sense didn't apply to these creatures and nowhere was safe. Rikudo warned that waiting would only make things worse. The students asked what the slime was as Rikudo fought it. Tanny screamed for help, and Rikudo told him to hold on while grabbing a large blanket. He called for Nishi, who quickly joined in. The students realized the slime could dissolve human flesh, but not synthetic fibers. Working together, they counted to 3. Then they threw the blanket over Tanny and pulled him free. Sakura nervously asked if they had removed the creature. Despite Rikudo's heavy blows, the slime was unharmed. He remembered that in games, slimes resisted physical attacks but were weak to magic. He decided they should try burning it. Nishi didn't know how to start a fire, but Sakura appeared with flammable liquid and poured it over the monster. Then she lit a match. There was an explosion and the slime evaporated. Rikudo noted that fire seemed to be its weakness and thanked her. Then he remembered Tanny, but Nishi said it was too late. Takeda knelt beside his friend's body, calling his name. Yama appeared confused. Rikudo demanded to know if he now understood the seriousness of their situation. He warned that staying and waiting for a rescue that might never come would doom them all. The teacher sank to the floor, saying he didn't understand anymore and that the students could do as they wished. Rikudo, Nishi, Sakura, and Takebana left the school, killing any monsters in their way. They reached Yama's car and gave Takebana the keys. She noticed it was not a manual, but said she could drive it anyway, even if she was more used to manual transmission. Sakura asked if she really had to go, but the archer reminded her she was the only one who knew which tools and parts were needed to fix the phone. Seidu appeared, declaring he would join them to protect Takebana. Nishi warned him not to cause trouble. Seidu said he would do whatever it took to survive. Nishi noticed Seidu's jealous glances at Rikudo and hoped he wouldn't act recklessly. Takebana asked if everyone was ready, then started the car. Nishi told her they were all counting on her. Sakura silently regretted going. Rikudo said they were set. They drove off. Back at the school, a student suggested they burn the bodies on the rooftop, as Rikudo had recommended. Yama, holding a wooden practice sword, angrily told her to stop talking about Rikudo and said he would deal with the corpses when they returned. He reminded everyone he was in charge. Meanwhile, in the city, the team drove through monster-infested streets. Creatures attacked as soon as they heard the engine. Takebana ran over one by accident, and Rikudo reassured her. Nishi, looking through the sunroof, said the car had been the right choice because the smaller monsters couldn't reach them. His relief faded when he saw a massive creature and told Takebana to change course. Sakura guided her back to a 4-way intersection and told her to turn right. Rikudo said everyone was relying on her, while Seidu glared from the back seat. Through the sunroof, Nishi saw enormous flying monsters and wolf-like beasts eating people. He said it felt like the world had ended. Rikudo asked if there were survivors, and Nishi said none so far. The blonde guessed there might be people hiding elsewhere, and that they were unusual for being outside at all. Seidu suddenly told Takebana to stop. She obeyed and asked why. He pointed out a convenience store about 50 meters away and suggested they check for food. Sakura agreed. Rikudo noted they would also find supplies at their destination, but Seidu snapped at him. Seidu accused Rikudo of acting like the leader just because he fought monsters. Nishi defended him, and Sakura urged everyone to get along. Takebana scolded her boyfriend, who muttered under his breath. Nishi thought about the risks and said there were no perfect choices. They didn't even know if leaving the school had been the right decision, but now that they had, they needed to give it everything. He said he trusted his friends and wouldn't complain. Nishi said food was essential, and they should take every opportunity to gather it. Everyone agreed. 5 minutes later, they reached Honolulu Coffee, and Seidu confirmed it was the place. Sakura warned them to be careful, and Nishi said they should leave if things felt wrong. Inside, the shelves were mostly empty, and Rikudo pointed out there were no monsters. Nishi thought others might have already taken the food. Rikudo found untouched canned goods, and they began collecting supplies. After about 15 minutes, they had a decent haul. Then Seidu heard a noise behind a door. They opened it, calling out, but found no one. There was just a cardboard box that seemed to contain bread. The group stared at it in confusion. Seidu stepped forward and confirmed the box held bread. Excited by the discovery, he wanted to claim it immediately, but Rikudo told him to wait. Annoyed, Seidu asked what the problem was, insisting he was the one who found it. Rikudo said something felt wrong. He pointed out the bloodstains around the box and questioned if that didn't seem suspicious. Seidu brushed it off, asking what could possibly have happened. Rikudo admitted he didn't know, but pointed to strange writing on the floor. He had a bad feeling and warned everyone to stay away. In a mocking tone, Seidu claimed that even if they didn't take the box now, he would return later and grab it in secret to take the credit. Nishi tried to get his attention, but Seidu grabbed the box and shouted it was his. Suddenly, a large red eye appeared and fixed its gaze on him. Seidu froze in fear, dropped the box to the floor and screamed. The girls in the car heard the scream and grew anxious. Sakura told Tachibana to duck down. Moments later, monstrous lizard-like beings appeared, carrying spears with severed heads on the tips. The girls stayed hidden inside the car. Inside the store, a monster with one large eye and 9 tentacles emerged, attacking the boys. Rikudo charged in with his steel pipe and struck it, while Seidu watched, irritated. Looking at the box, Rikudo realized the creature was a mimic, something he had only seen in games. Nishi called out that something was happening outside. The boys peeked out and saw one of the lizard creatures standing still, as if investigating. Nishi identified it as a lizard man and noted there were several of them. Deciding they couldn't take on 5, they stayed hidden and hoped the creatures would leave. One of the lizard men approached the car and smashed a window with its spear. Tachibana screamed. Realizing the girls had been discovered, the boys rushed forward together, except Seidu, who froze in terror. Sakura was dragged out of the car and tried to convince the monster to let her go by shouting that she was not worth eating. As things reached a critical moment, one of the monsters was suddenly struck down. Rikudo appeared, striking with his steel pipe, and he told Tabana to protect Sakura. If things went bad, she was to leave with Nishi and abandon him. Surrounded by 3 lizard men, Rikudo was cornered. Then an arrow struck one of them, bringing it down. Nishi, hidden, knew that if he was spotted, he would lose his advantage, and fighting 3 at once would be too much. Just as Rikudo feared it might be his end, a boy on the store roof threw a rock that hit one of the monsters. He kept throwing with all his strength, while Nishi fired arrows. Another boy with platinum hair appeared and used brass knuckles to take down another creature. Rikudo, seizing the moment, finished off the remaining lizard men. With the enemies defeated, Rikudo thanked one of the new boys for saving his life. The girls, relieved to see other survivors, ran over. Nishi noticed from their uniforms that the newcomers were from the same school. Remembering the area was dangerous, Nishi said they needed to leave quickly. The boy with green eyes suggested they come to his hideout and asked his platinum-haired friend, Senpai, if that was fine. Senpai didn't seem pleased but didn't refuse. Nishi admitted he thought they were finished back there. Rikudo said luck could still appear when you didn't give up. Tabana told everyone to get in the car, surprising the rock-throwing boy, who didn't expect her to be the driver. After about 10 minutes, the strangers introduced themselves. The red-haired boy said he was Ice Tauta, and his friend was Yamo Takeshi, called Senpai. Ice Tauta then pointed to their hideout, a large hotel called Hotel Love. The group was shocked, but Ice Tauta explained it was a smart refuge because it was far from crowds, meaning fewer phones from which monsters could appear. Seeing Nishi's expression, he insisted there was no bad blood between him and his friend. Nishi said that wasn't the problem and suggested exchanging information. Seidu seemed irritated and told them to do as they liked. Nishi told the others not to take his mood personally. Ice Tauta explained that he was returning from school when monsters attacked. Using his speed, he managed to escape, but was eventually cornered. That was when Takeshi appeared and saved him. He praised Takeshi's strength and said he was the one who found the hotel. Nishi realized he had heard of Takeshi before, rumors of him being a violent delinquent, involved with gangs, drugs, and even murder. Watching him now, those stories felt exaggerated, given the friendship between him and Ice Tauta. Ice Tauta continued, saying they had been searching for food when they met the group. Rikudo asked if they had left the warning near the box in the store, but they denied it. Embarrassed, Rikudo dropped the subject. As they walked deeper into the hotel, Nishi explained their own situation from the beginning. Ice Tauta was relieved to hear there were still people safe at the school. He asked if fixing the phone could help them call for rescue, but Nishi admitted the chances were slim. Rikudo then asked what Ice Tauta and Takeshi planned to do next. Sakura, still frustrated, said she had been forced to come. Takashi surprised Ice Tauta by saying he would join them. He promised he wouldn't hold them back and could act as a shield. Nishi said that would be a big help. Takashi then asked his friend what he wanted to do. Ice Tauta said he would go too, insisting he was a man who needed to take action. Rikudo told Nishi it was good they had stopped at the store, and Nishi agreed. Takashi, however, criticized their plan, saying the area had many people and therefore more monsters. He said they needed a proper entry plan and had to keep Sakura, the key player, safe at all costs. She was surprised by this. The others agreed they had been too hasty. Takashi said he wouldn't be involved in planning and would simply act as a soldier. They then began working on a final plan. Seidu was excluded and sulked in the corner. After the meeting, they returned to the car and made repeated trips, focusing on finding a safe route. Even with obstacles, they worked together to overcome them. After several days, they reached their destination. Rikudo remarked that rushing would have gotten them all killed. The girls felt relieved, and Sakura said it felt like centuries since she had been there. Ice Tauta's legs trembled with excitement, calling it the thrill of a warrior before battle. Rikudo told everyone to stay alert, and Nishi added that from here on, they would face challenges as they came. Outside the school, flying monsters filled the air, while others roamed the ground. One student said the survivors had been living on small pieces of bread. Sitting on the floor with his head in his hands, a boy in despair wondered how much longer they could keep going like this. Two girls quietly worried about the others, saying they hadn't heard from them since they left. Inamoto, feeling hungry, approached the teacher, who was eating an entire loaf of bread. She politely asked if he could share more, since everyone was starving. The teacher slammed his weapon on the ground and told her to forget it. Standing, he shouted about how precious food was now and ordered her to be quiet and obey. Takeda whispered angrily to his friend that while they were starving, Jama was stuffing himself. The girl tried again to reason with the teacher, warning they wouldn't survive until the others returned. The man said the group had probably already been killed by monsters. Inamoto protested that it was a cruel thing to say and reminded him that the others had gone out to help. With a dark look, Jama grabbed her by the waist, and he said that if she did something for him, he would give her special treatment. She screamed for him to stop, but he laughed and claimed he was just joking. Meanwhile, on the school roof, creatures devoured a pile of corpses. At the same time, Rikudo's group walked through an area that seemed empty of threats. Rikudo wondered aloud what it meant. Nishi said there must be a large, powerful creature nearby, something like a boss in a game, which kept smaller monsters away. Nishi asked why the monsters resembled those in video games. Rikudo said that at least naming them would be easier. Rikudo added that someone must know the names, and Nishi replied there might be a set of rules at work. Takeishi reminded everyone their goal came first. Later, they reached a floor full of electronics, tools, and chemicals. Sakura ran to the shelves, thrilled, and declared she could live there. They divided tasks. Rikudo asked Ice Tauta and Takebana to help Sakura, while Seidu and Nishi guarded them. Rikudo and Takeishi patrolled. Sakura examined devices, planning to replace the CPU in the broken phone with one she found. While patrolling, Rikudo discovered a note on a shelf that read, "Eliminate intruders." The handwriting matched the warning from the first store. Suddenly, footsteps echoed, and a massive stone creature with a glowing core appeared, announcing it had detected heat. Rikudo realized it was a golem. It charged at him, and he struck it. But the blow did nothing. The golem moved with surprising speed. Rikudo hit it again, but it wasn't enough. Just as it was about to land a powerful strike, Takeishi stepped in and delivered a crushing punch, knocking it down. The golem quickly rose again, unharmed. Takeishi, frustrated, said hitting the core should have worked. Rikudo suggested they search carefully for its weak point. Takeishi took the lead, telling Rikudo to follow his commands, and Rikudo agreed. The fight began with a platinum-haired boy skillfully dodging the golem's attacks and landing multiple punches. His partner, watching closely, admired his strength and wondered if this was some kind of boxing technique. He thought that even professional fighters rarely reached this level, but then grew worried when he noticed the monster was highly resistant to such blows. The golem struck Takeishi in the head, causing him to bleed. His friend realized the situation was dangerous, as they were losing their advantage. Rikudo suddenly understood the meaning of the warning note they had found earlier. He shouted for Takeishi to fall back. Rikudo then used all his strength to hit the golem's head with his steel pipe. The stone creature shattered completely, leaving Takeishi confused about what had just happened. The rest of the group ran over. Nishi asked what had happened to the pile of stones, and Rikudo explained it had been a golem. Nishi, shocked, asked if Rikudo had defeated it. Rikudo confirmed, saying he remembered from a game that the weak point was in the head. Nishi was thrilled, saying their journey felt more and more like a fantasy. Seidu tried to belittle the victory, suggesting it was just a small creature. But Takeishi disagreed. Takeishi praised Rikudo's ability to read movements and spot the letters on the monster's head, saying he could be trusted in battle. Rikudo thanked him. Ice Tauta also praised Takeishi and said he wanted Takeishi to trust him too, while Seidu looked annoyed. The bow wielder declared that with the enemy gone, they could return to work. But Rikudo, looking thoughtful, pointed out that the creature seemed too weak to be a true boss. At that moment, a large purple sphere rushed toward them at high speed. Sakura sensed danger, asking if the noise was getting closer. The sphere appeared at the top of the escalator, surprising everyone. Nishi wondered if it was another boulder, but Sakura pointed out they were inside a store, so that didn't make sense. Before Takebana could be hit, Rikudo pulled her out of harm's way. The sphere revealed a glowing purple eye. Then it stood up and transformed into a massive humanoid with the eye in the middle of its chest. Rikudo told Nishi that this one was definitely the boss. Sweating, Nishi muttered that this was bad news. The purple golem spoke the same words as the smaller one, declaring it would eliminate the intruders. It swung its massive arm, missing and smashing a hole in the ground. Rikudo noted that because of its size, hitting the letters on its head would be far more difficult. Nishi stepped forward, saying he would handle it. He fired arrows at the letters on its head, but they didn't even scratch the surface. Sakura, terrified, wondered if this was even fair. The golem roared, its chest glowing as it prepared to fire a purple energy beam. They sprinted in panic, and the monster unleashed its attack directly toward Rikudo. The beam struck the ground, leaving a huge burning hole. 4 of them managed to hide behind a wall, breathing heavily. Rikudo was shaken by the creature's power. Takebana checked on Nishi, but his injuries were severe. She worried about the others, but Rikudo said they needed to focus on what they could do right now. He suggested they head for the underground parking lot and regroup there if the others were safe. Seidu rejected the idea, yelling that they couldn't reach the stairs without being seen. Rikudo agreed, saying he wouldn't abandon his friend. The monster drew closer. Rikudo suddenly left cover and confronted it head-on. He shouted for the others to run for the stairs while he distracted it. He thought about the creature's behavior, realizing it reacted to heat and aggression. If they could distract it with a flare, they might all escape safely. Takebana signaled she was ready to throw the flare, but Seidu interfered, knocking it away so it rolled down the stairs. The plan was ruined. Takebana demanded to know why, and Seidu said the monster might have turned on them before the flare was thrown. The golem struck again, slamming Rikudo into a wall. Injured, Rikudo told them to stay put and take care of Nishi. He warned Seidu to protect Takebana. Seidu cynically told them to leave Rikudo behind, which made Takebana furious. She punched him in the face. Then she ran to help Rikudo. The golem began charging another attack. Rikudo thought about how he had been giving his all since that tragic day, but felt powerless in this moment. He remembered his late brother and admitted his brother had been right. Suddenly, Takebana appeared and pulled him out of the beam's path just in time. They fell to the ground, and Rikudo scolded her for being reckless. She grabbed his collar, demanding to know how he could give up so easily. Her words triggered a memory of when, as children, he had saved her from bullies and never backed down. Realizing they were still alive, Rikudo stood again, steel pipe in hand, ready to fight. An arrow struck the monster. Looking back, they saw the group reunited, including Nishi, who appeared recovered. Rikudo and Takebana were overjoyed. Ice Touter admitted he had been worried when they left them behind, and Takeshi apologized for the delay. Everyone prepared for a counterattack. Takebana and Rikudo stood at the front, facing the monster. Rikudo struck it with his steel pipe. Nishi watched from nearby with another boy. The boy admitted he was considering retreat, but hesitated. A loud noise drew attention. Small golems were climbing up from the lower floor. The noise grew louder, frightening Sakura, who called it a desperate situation. Nishi asked Rikudo what to do, warning that if this kept up, they were finished. Rikudo told the bow wielder to keep firing at the same spot. Nishi called the monster a fool and said it wouldn't last much longer. Rikudo said he had to defeat it because he was still alive. The word alive made Sakura freeze. She called out to Rikudo and Nishi, saying she might be able to do something if given time. Sakura admitted they might not believe her, but she could defeat the monster. Rikudo encouraged her, promising to buy her time. Moved by his trust, Sakura began working, tears in her eyes. Rikudo called Nishi closer. A blonde boy asked if Sakura could really do it, and she said yes, because Rikudo trusted her. Sakura told Ice Touta to help the boys and asked him to protect the girls. The monster prepared to attack again. Sakura crouched and began mixing chemical potions. Takebana noticed her trembling and asked if she was all right, but Sakura told her to be quiet. The monster lunged at Rikudo, who dodged. Nishi urged Sakura to hurry. She was almost done, adding the final ingredient and completing the mixture. She warned Takebana never to handle chemicals lightly. The next step was to throw the potion at the monster's head. Takebana asked how they could manage that. Realizing she hadn't thought of it, Sakura called herself an idiot. Ice Touta grabbed the vial, saying he could throw it because he was on the baseball team. The monster closed in fast. Nishi grew frustrated at how close it was getting. Then energy began building up in the monster's chest for a powerful strike. Takeshi wondered if this was the end. Ice Touta arrived, saying it was a special delivery from Sakura, and hurled the vial with precision. Takebana asked what Sakura had put in it. Sakura explained it was a chemical reaction. She had mixed manganate and sulfuric acid with glycerin, creating nitroglycerin. Before she finished explaining, a massive explosion threw everyone back. Smoke rose around the monster, which still stood. The baseball boy asked again about the explosion, and Sakura compared nitroglycerin to dynamite. Everyone stared at her with a mix of shock and exasperation, scolding her for not warning them first. From somewhere nearby, someone called out Sakura's name. In the aftermath of a massive explosion, Rikudo's group surveys the damage. The entire area is charred. That was one hell of an explosion, thanks to which the whole area is charred. They may have won, but Kyuju lightly scolds Takebana for his recklessness in the battle. He sheepishly promises to be more careful from now on. While the others talk, Rikudo silently turns and walks towards a door, his expression unreadable. Takebana watches him go, a questioning look on his face. Takebana senses what Rikudo is about to do and yells for him to stop, warning him not to open that door. Rikudo opens it anyway, revealing the stairwell. To their surprise, the piles of golems that were previously pounding on the door are now just inert heaps of rock. Osumi wonders if it's because they defeated the large monster. Rikudo agrees it's probable, even if he doesn't fully grasp the logic behind it. Rikudo turns to Kyuju, asking if she managed to get the parts for the phone. She confirms she got the bare minimum they needed. Rikudo thanks her, acknowledging that her quick thinking truly saved them. Flustered by the praise, Kyuju brushes it off, saying she didn't do much. With the immediate danger gone, Takebana suggests they shouldn't linger and should head back. Suddenly, a tense scene unfolds. Katon approaches Seidu, her voice dripping with contempt as she calls him the worst. Seidu frantically tries to defend his past actions, desperately claiming he did what he had to do in order to save her. But Katon is having none of it. With a cold glare, she tells him she doesn't care and orders him to never come near her again, leaving Seidu speechless. Rikudo and Takebana watch the confrontation from a distance, surprised by the sudden drama. Takebana wonders what could have happened between the two. The rejection shatters Seidu's composure. He clutches his head, letting out whimpers of despair as Takebana and Rikudo look on in concern. His anguish explodes into a full-blown scream as he turns and bolts, running frantically up the stairs. Takebana calls out his name in alarm. Takebana tries to chase after him, shouting at him not to go too far, warning him of the dangers that could still be lurking. Seidu runs deep into a dark storage area, panting and desperately calling out for Kurigane. Clutching his head in agony, he collapses into delusion, wondering how everything went so wrong. He mutters to himself that Katon belongs to him. His mind breaks completely. An apparition of Rikudo appears in his mind as he screams that this is all Kurigane's fault, wishing for him to die. Consumed by pure rage, Seidu lets out a final guttural scream and kicks a nearby stack of boxes, unleashing all his frustration. After his outburst, Seidu pants, trying to catch his breath. As he looks up, his eyes land on something unexpected in the debris. Red markings on the floor lead his eyes to a strange sight. He questions what he's seeing. A coffin, strangely placed in the middle of the store. Embedded in the coffin is a silver knife, pinning down a piece of paper. The paper bears a chilling, handwritten warning, SCALED, touch. Ignoring the ominous warning, a manic grin spreads across Seidu's face as he reads the words sealed, don't touch. He rips the paper free and pulls the silver knife from its resting place, breaking the seal. He looks down, confused, as the coffin begins to tremble. A dark, bloody liquid seeps from the opening, indicating that by breaking the seal, Seidu has just awakened something terrible within. From the dark, bloody interior of the coffin, a horrifying, wraith-like creature with glowing red eyes emerges with a low howl, lunging directly at the terrified Seidu. Seidu screams in terror as the shadowy entity attacks, its skeletal hand phasing right through his chest. Meanwhile, unaware of the horror unfolding, Takebana and Osumi search for Seidu, complaining that he shouldn't have ventured out alone. Takebana calls out his name, asking where he is. Suddenly, Seidu appears behind them, his presence startling Osumi. Seidu casually apologizes for worrying them. Takebana, relieved but annoyed, exclaims, Seidu, what, you were right here. Takebana scolds him for not answering and wandering off. But Seidu's demeanor has completely changed. He's now calm and apologetic, claiming he just got a little worked up. With an unsettlingly cheerful smile, Seidu declares that since they've done what they came to do, they should head back. Takebana, taken aback by the sudden change, can only agree. As they walk, Takebana and Osumi observe Seidu, who is humming cheerfully. Takebana notes that he seems to be in an exceptionally good mood, which is very strange given his breakdown just moments ago. Osumi narrows his eyes, a sense of unease creeping in. He wonders if he's imagining things, but he's disturbed by the fact that he didn't notice Seidu approach them at all. As the three walk away, a dark, sinister shadow with glowing red eyes looms behind them, unseen. The entity from the coffin is now attached to Seidu. The group makes it back to their base, a hotel they've commandeered. They express their relief, remarking how the place that once felt strange to enter now feels like home. Inside, Kyuju works with the parts she salvaged. After some tense work, she looks at a powered-on laptop in triumph. She did it. The others crowd around her excitedly, asking if she can get online. Kyuju, holding a phone connected to the laptop, says she's about to find out. Success, a Google search page loads on the phone. Kyuju exclaims that it worked. The internet isn't broken. The group erupts in cheers, praising her great work. The others praise her, calling her amazing. Kyuju, basking in the success, proudly boasts that something like this is nothing for her. Rikudo cuts the celebration short with a serious question, asking Kyuju if there's any information about survivors or emergency shelters. She gets to work, checking social media. The mood quickly turns grim. Kyuju discovers that since the day the monsters appeared, there have been no new updates on social media, only old, desperate posts crying for help or declaring the end of the world. Just as they begin to lose hope, Kyuju lets out a gasp of surprise. She's found something. She's found a single recent post. It's a message from Amishima City, announcing that survivors are gathering there and praying for everyone's safety. The group is ecstatic. Amishima is far, but not impossible to reach. They agree that it's a better option than staying at the school where things are getting worse. Katon joyfully tells Rikudo that they finally have a ray of hope. He agrees, saying it's one step forward. But in the background, Seidu watches them with a blank, unsettling expression. However, as Rikudo turns away, his face twists into a sinister, knowing smile, revealing a darker side to his leadership. The hope he's giving them might not be what it seems. Putting his leader face back on, Rikudo announces that tomorrow, they'll inform everyone at the school about this, declaring that even in this hellish world, there is hope. The story then makes a jarring shift. Under a blood-red sky filled with shrieking, winged monsters, we are shown a different school, suggesting that while one group finds hope, another is living a nightmare. We are taken inside to a ransacked, blood-splattered room. The silence is heavy, but faint noises hint at a struggle happening just out of view, setting a deeply disturbing and ominous tone. Inside the darkened room, a girl cries out, telling her attacker to stop. We see the terrifying silhouette of a muscular man holding a knife over her. The man, a tyrannical teacher known only as Sensei, tells the terrified girl, Inamoto, that it's no use resisting. She lies helpless, begging him not to do this. Sensei pants, a sadistic grin on his face as he looks down at the sobbing girl. He revels in the moment, calling it a nice view. His face twists in a look of pure ecstasy. He licks his lips and declares that this is the best, like heaven on earth. This is the dark reality of survival in this school. The scene flashes back to explain how this nightmare began, showing the events that unfolded at the school after Rikudo's group left for the shopping mall. Harpy-like monsters swarmed the building. The creatures descended upon the students who were outside, creating a scene of bloody chaos and trapping the survivors inside. Inside the school, a new conflict was brewing. An aggressive student named Takeda, flanked by a blonde student with a baseball bat, confronted Sensei, accusing him of trying to starve them to death. Other students watched in fear, realizing the situation was bad and wondering what they should do. Takeda furiously demands food, but Sensei stands his ground, arms crossed, and calmly states that there isn't any. Takeda doesn't believe him for a second. He calls Sensei a liar, shouting that he knows he's hiding the food somewhere. The blonde student with the baseball bat backs up his leader, warning Sensei that if he keeps this up, there's no telling what Takeda will do. Sensei remains unimpressed. He looks down on the students and tells them to forget it, stating he won't allow them to do as they please. He asserts his absolute authority, declaring that as a teacher, whatever he decides is right. He tells the students to just shut up and obey him, but Takeda only grows angrier at being looked down upon. Having had enough, Takeda yells at Sensei to cut it out and lunges forward, throwing a punch. The other students let out a collective gasp. Takeda demands the key to the food storage, but Sensei has fallen to the ground from the force of the punch. Takeda looms over him, annoyed that Sensei has clammed up again. He growls that silence is one of the things he hates the most. Enraged, Takeda raises his fist again, screaming that Sensei is pissing him off. The watching students are stunned, unable to process the escalating violence. But in a shocking twist, it's Takeda who looks down in disbelief. A knife is sticking out of his stomach. Sensei, with a vicious grin, has stabbed him from the ground. Takeda stammers in shock, the pain hitting him as he looks at the blade embedded in his torso. The other students scream in horror. Sensei stands up, casually holding the bloody knife as Takeda collapses to the floor. Takeda's blonde companion stares in absolute shock, unable to believe Sensei actually stabbed him. Takeda lies on the floor, blood pouring from his mouth as he chokes. Sensei turns his cold gaze to the remaining aggressor. With a chilling chuckle, he asks if the boy will finally do as Sensei tells him. Before the student can even react, Sensei lunges at him, declaring that bad kids require educational guidance. He brings his foot down on the boy's baseball bat, snapping it as the student cries out. The scene returns to the present of this horrific timeline. Sensei hums to himself as he walks down the now blood-splattered hallway, carrying the limp body of Inamoto over his shoulder. Sensei kicks open the door to a classroom, still carrying the unconscious Inamoto over his shoulder with a smug look on his face. He announces his return to the terrified students huddled in the back of the room. The bodies of the students he just killed are visible on the floor, a grim reminder of his brutality. He mockingly asks the students why they are huddling in the corner. Among them are terrified Hayashi, Riko, Kasuhara, and Nijima. He unceremoniously dumps Inamoto's limp body on the floor in front of them, sneering that she is home. With the knife still in hand, Sensei cruelly compliments the unconscious Inamoto, noting that for a member of the track and field team, she was exceptionally good at running away. Without missing a beat, he decides he's still ready for more. He turns his predatory gaze towards the group and announces that his next guidance will be for Kasuhara, who flinches in terror. In a desperate act of self-preservation, Kasahara begs Sensei to wait. She tries to offer up her friend Riko in her place. Riko is horrified, shouting at Kasahara for trying to sell out her own friend. But Kasahara, cornered and terrified, just screams back at her, calling her a sycophant. Sensei, amused by the infighting, simply grabs Kasahara by her hair, silencing her instantly. He looms over Kasahara and another girl, Nijima, with a dark, menacing look. He asks them if they are good girls who will listen to Sensei. Frozen in absolute terror, Riko and Kasahara can only stammer out agreements, tears welling in their eyes as they realize they have no choice but to submit. At that moment, the male student Hayashi speaks up tentatively, catching Sensei's attention. Sensei asks what he wants. Hayashi, trembling with fear, loses his nerve completely and stammers that it's nothing. Sensei looks at him with suspicion, his hand tightening on his bloody knife as he asks, "Is that so?" To make his point clear, Sensei gestures to the dead bodies of Takeda and the other student. He warns Hayashi not to get any funny ideas, unless he wants to end up just like them. Terrified, Hayashi immediately protests that nothing could be further from his mind. Sensei chuckles, calling him a good boy and praising his obedience. With the last flicker of resistance extinguished, Sensei turns his attention back to his chosen victim, grabbing Kasahara's arm. He begins to drag her away. She screams and struggles, but it's no use. As Kasahara is dragged off, screaming for someone to help her, the remaining students can only watch, frozen in absolute terror and despair, knowing they are completely powerless. The scene opens on a flashback, showing a terrified female student named Kasahara. Overwhelmed by fear, she clutches her head, thinking she can't take it anymore and questioning what this new, twisted world has become. In the school hallway, Kasahara tries to fight back as the teacher, Yama-sensei, drags her away. She begs him to let go, calling him scum, but he merely repeats her word with a questioning tone. Yama-sensei slams Kasahara against the lockers, violently reminding her to address him as sensei, as she cries out in pain. He sadistically drags her by the hair, declaring that she requires supplementary lessons. From Kasahara's perspective, the world feels like hell. For Yama-sensei, this new world is heaven, a place where he can indulge his cruel desires. For Kasahara, it is nothing but hell. Back in the classroom, Kasahara collapses in despair, feeling that the world has ended and is nothing but trash. Other captive students sit silently, trapped with her. The scene returns to Yama-sensei, dragging the defeated Kasahara. He thinks to himself that even though the world ended, there's something to be said for the way things are now. A sinister grin spreads across his face as he has a dark epiphany. He realizes that with the old world gone, he can start his own world where he is in control. The flashback ends and the story shifts to the present. Suddenly, a vehicle appears outside the school building, catching Yama-sensei's attention. He looks out the window in shock, realizing that the car belongs to him. This implies that someone he knows has returned. A look of pure panic crosses Yama-sensei's face as the implication of the car's arrival dawns on him. He can't believe it. Outside, Rikudo Kurigane's group, including Takebana and Nishi, stands before the school, relieved to have finally made it back after a long and difficult journey. Takebana looks at his phone, hoping to provide everyone with some peace of mind, likely by contacting those inside. Rikudo quietly agrees. Inside, Kasahara peers out the window and sees them. A wave of relief washes over her as she realizes Kurigane and the others are alive. Yama-sensei watches from a different window, utterly shocked. He can't believe they survived and wonders what he should do now that his plans are threatened. His fear quickly turns to aggression. He decides that no matter what, he has to get the jump on them to maintain control. He glares at Rikudo and Takebana from afar, thinking to himself that the kingdom he is building has no place for them. Unaware of the teacher's sinister thoughts, the group shouts from outside, pleading to be let back into the school. Takebana finds it odd that there's no response from inside, and the group begins to suspect that something is wrong. Meanwhile, Yama-sensei paces by the barricaded window, cursing his luck as he watches the students who threaten his new world order. He looks from the captive students sitting on the floor to the group outside, panicking that the kingdom he's built is about to crumble. The other captive students look on with concern. Kasahara and the others seem to place their hope in Kurigane's return. Yama-sensei glances at the bodies of students he has already killed, hidden behind a curtain. He realizes he's done for if Kurigane's group finds out. But then, a cunning thought strikes him. He reasons that they don't know anything about what he's done yet, giving him a potential opening to manipulate the situation. His confidence growing, he identifies Rikudo, Kurigane, and Nishi as the only real threats. Convinced the others are no match for him, he starts to formulate a new, depraved plan. His depraved thoughts continue as he fantasizes about getting the drop on the group. He specifically notes two girls, Kyuju and another he mistakes for Takebana, gleefully thinking he could add two top-class beauties to his harem. A grotesque close-up shows Yama-sensei drooling and chuckling to himself, completely lost in his disgusting fantasy. He then turns his attention back to the captive students in the classroom, calling out to them to reassert his authority. The students flinch in fear. With a menacing grin, he clutches a rope and warns them not to make a fuss if they value their lives, eliciting a terrified whimper. The scene cuts back to Rikudo's group outside the school. They find the silence strange and unsettling, wondering if something happened inside. Tachibana, the student with the bow, turns to Rikudo and asks him what their plan is. Rikudo quietly acknowledges the situation. With a calm and determined expression, Rikudo announces his decision: let's break in. Rikudo elaborates on the plan, telling Tachibana they'll use their car to break through the shutter. A female student with them reacts with shock and disbelief, questioning if he's serious. Tachibana sighs, exasperated, muttering about Rikudo's tendency to come up with crazy plans, while Rikudo looks on, unfazed. Before they can act, the shutter suddenly rolls up. Yama-sensei stands in the opening, feigning concern and calling their plan unsettling. He throws his arms open, putting on a welcoming act. He exclaims their names and says he's relieved that they're all okay. He asks if their trip was worthwhile. The students report that they acquired provisions, found other survivors, and most importantly, repaired Rikudo's phone. Just then another student, Issei Tauta, cheerfully greets the teacher, happy to see him. Uyama-sensei is taken aback by his appearance. Internally, Uyama-sensei curses, seeing Issei as just another nuisance. As he turns, a fresh bloodstain is visible on his sleeve, a detail that doesn't go unnoticed. He quickly masks his annoyance with a wide, fake smile, telling Issei he's happy to see him alive. He resolves to deal with Kurigane and Nishi first. Uyama-sensei addresses Rikudo, Kurigane, and Nishi directly, telling them he needs to discuss their next move, and asking them to come with him for a moment. Tachibana seems confused, asking why everyone can't be included in the discussion, but Uyama-sensei gestures for only the two of them to follow. Rikudo's expression remains neutral, as Uyama-sensei explains that there's been some trouble, and he wants to hear their opinions first, a clear attempt to isolate them. The other students look to Rikudo for a decision. After a moment, Rikudo agrees to the private meeting, stating that he doesn't mind. As Uyama-sensei leads Rikudo and Nishi away, Tachibana calls out to the rest of the group, telling them sorry and that they'll be right back. While the others are gone, the remaining students begin carrying the supplies they gathered into the school, eager to see everyone's happy faces. As they work, the student Kyuju suddenly realizes someone is missing and asks where Seidu is. She looks toward the school entrance, wondering if Seidu had already gone inside ahead of them, unaware of his actual fate. The scene shifts to a long, empty school corridor. As Yama-sensei leads the students away from the group, his internal monologue reveals his glee. I did it, he thinks, certain that his trap has been successfully set. Believing he has already won, Yama-sensei confidently leads Rikudo and Nishi further down the hall. However, Nishi's suspicion grows with every step. He finally speaks up, questioning the teacher. Sensei, isn't this far enough? Yama-sensei dismisses Nishi's suspicion with a fake apology, telling him it's just around the corner. Internally, he plots to swipe Nishi's bow, believing that will be enough to secure his victory. However, Rikudo comes to a halt, and his silence makes Yama-sensei turn back, his sinister smile faltering as he realizes they've stopped following him. Yama-sensei stands before a classroom, consumed by his delusion. He declares that this is his last kingdom and he won't let anyone get in his way, but Rikudo calmly points out that it's just a classroom. Realizing he's been cornered, Nishi asks the teacher to explain himself. Yama-sensei, holding a fire extinguisher behind his back, replies that he has something to say, preparing to spring his trap. In a swift motion, Yama-sensei brings the fire extinguisher forward, ready to attack the students he lured into the empty hallway. He unleashes a cloud of foam directly into Nishi's face, catching him completely by surprise. As Nishi cries out in pain, blinded by the foam, Yama-sensei laughs maniacally, believing his ambush has succeeded. Brandishing a bent metal pipe, he lunges forward, screaming for the insufferable brats to die. But his attack is suddenly blocked. Rikudo, anticipating the move, intercepts the pipe with a weapon of his own. Yama-sensei is stunned, unable to comprehend how his surprise attack failed. Rikudo and Nishi now stand ready for a fight. Rikudo calmly states that his misgivings have once again hit the mark, as Yama-sensei stammers his name in shock. Rikudo reveals he suspected it would come to this. The terrified teacher, realizing his plan has fallen apart, panics and asks how he could have possibly known. Rikudo exposes the crucial clue, on the back of your left sleeve. That's human blood, isn't it? Yama-sensei freezes in horror. Rikudo explains that when they last spoke outside, that blood wasn't there. The evidence is undeniable, and the teacher begins to tremble. With cold fury in his eyes, Rikudo declares that he is now certain that Yama-sensei has crossed a line and done something unforgivable. A brief flashback reveals the source of the blood. Another student, beaten and dying, had warned Yama-sensei that he would one day face judgment for his actions. In his last moments, the student had grabbed the teacher's arm, leaving the very bloodstain that would ultimately expose his crimes. Back in the present, Yama-sensei trembles with rage, infuriated that he was caught because of a dying student's final act of defiance. Having been completely outsmarted, he loses all composure and screams at the students for making a fool of him. Nishi, having recovered, swiftly lands a powerful kick to Yama-sensei's chest, knocking him off balance. Rikudo follows up immediately, striking the teacher hard with his pipe and sending him crashing to the floor. Rikudo, now sporting a black eye patch, stands over the defeated teacher, ready to deliver the final blow. Meanwhile, outside the school, a new threat emerges. A flock of harpy-like monsters descends from the sky, squawking as they search for prey. One of the harpies swoops down and captures a student, dragging them away as an unknown figure watches from a doorway. The mysterious figure, a menacing-looking man, observes the harpies with a sinister smile, remarking that they are just what he needs. The mysterious man emerges from the shadows, surrounded by the harpy monsters. He declares, "Now then, it's time to get things started." He lets out a sinister chuckle, a demonic shadow looming behind him, suggesting he has some dark power or allegiance. The scene pans out to the school building at dusk, the squawking of the monsters echoing in the distance, a reminder of the dangers that lurk outside. Back inside, the scene is grim. A student, likely Rikudo, finishes untying the ropes binding one of the captive girls, Kasahara, who gasps in relief. Kyuju finishes untying another girl. The archer, Takebana, looks over the 5 rescued students, somberly confirming that this is everyone they could find. Takebana Katon, another of the rescued students and Takebana's sister, looks around at the small group of survivors in disbelief and despair. A blonde student named Misaki rushes to the side of another girl, Inamoto, who has been stripped to her underwear. Misaki asks in horror why this happened. Another girl, Kasahara, trembles in a state of shock, wishing it were all a nightmare that she could wake up from. Kyuju, with a bandage on her head, begins to cry, lamenting how this awful reality has crushed them just when they had finally seen a ray of hope. She stands at the entrance of another classroom, looking in horror at the bodies of the students Yama-sensei had murdered, realizing the true extent of his depravity. The scene returns to the hallway, where Nishi, filled with rage, confronts the defeated Yama-sensei, screaming his name and demanding to know how he could commit such atrocities. Nishi grabs the teacher by the collar, shaking with fury over the betrayal. He screams at Yama-sensei, reminding him of his duty as a teacher to help them in this situation, and asks how he could betray their trust so completely. To Nishi's shock, Yama-sensei, far from being remorseful, throws his head back and begins to laugh maniacally. He looks down on Nishi with contempt, asking if the Yama-sensei tells them to face reality, ranting that the world has already ended as images of monsters killing people flash by. He screams that hope doesn't exist and that everyone is destined to die sooner or later, showing an image of a harpy carrying off a student. He continues his nihilistic tirade, laughing that everyone will just be eaten by monsters in the end. Therefore, he reasons with a twisted grin, he won't be punished for having a little fun before he dies. He then makes a vile proposition to the students, suggesting they could team up with him and start by assaulting Takebana Katon and Kyuju. His disgusting words push Nishi past his breaking point, his face contorting in pure rage. Nishi screams at him to shut his filthy mouth and throws a punch, intending to silence the deranged teacher for good. However, before the punch can land, Rikudo swiftly intervenes, catching Nishi's fist in his hand. Rikudo calmly tells the enraged Nishi to just ignore him, stopping him from going too far. With a chillingly cold expression, Rikudo states that dealing with Yama-sense is a waste of time and energy, his detached logic silencing the tense room. Rikudo turns to Nishi and states that, given the circumstances, they can't take Yama-sensei with them. Nishi, still simmering with anger, reluctantly agrees. Kasahara overhears this and becomes confused, asking what they mean. Takebana realizes that in the chaos, they forgot to tell the rescued students the good news. Takebana turns to the despairing students and announces that they might all be saved, a statement that leaves them stunned and speechless. He explains that thanks to their efforts in fixing Rikudo's phone, they now know the location of a settlement of survivors. The news washes over the rescued students, replacing despair with overwhelming joy. Kasahara and the others celebrate, realizing there is still hope and that they're going to be saved. In complete contrast, the tied-up Yama-sensei reacts with pure horror. For him, a survivor settlement represents the return of law and order and the end of his twisted fantasy. His arrogance vanishes, replaced by desperation. He starts begging Takebana, pleading not to be left behind alone in the school. He continues to plead, claiming he realizes now that he screwed up and begging them to take him with them. Takebana, however, looks on with a cold, unforgiving expression. While Yama-sensei begs for his life, one of his victims, Kasahara, glares at him with pure, unadulterated hatred. Clutching a knife, she mutters, "You dare say that," ready to exact her own revenge. Rikudo sighs, exhausted by the constant stream of problems. He decides they will figure out what to do with Yama-sensei later, as they have more pressing matters to consider. Takebana agrees, adding that their priority for now should be preparing for their journey to the newfound settlement, bringing the chapter to a close on a note of cautious optimism. Suddenly, a strange digital-like magic circle tears open the sky above the school, casting an ominous glow. Inside, as a glitchy, digital force shatters a window, Rikudo and his classmate Takebana are startled by the sudden intrusion. They stare in shock. Takebana is completely bewildered, but Rikudo's expression shows a dawning horror, as if he recognizes this phenomenon. Rikudo immediately moves, stepping towards the window to assess the situation. He and Takebana peer outside, trying to understand the chaos that is unfolding. The horrifying reality becomes clear. The digital pillars are summoning monsters. Goblins and winged creatures begin to materialize, turning the school grounds into a war zone. All kinds of grotesque monsters begin to appear one after another. Goblins, lizard men, and other bizarre beasts cry out as they are summoned. The newly spawned horde of monsters stands before the school building, ready to attack. Katon Takebana joins the boys at the window, horrified by the sight of monsters emerging from the lightning. Rikudo mutters that this phenomenon is the same as what happened on that day. In another classroom, two other students look on in disbelief. The boy questions how this is possible without smartphones, while the blonde girl can only state the obvious. A chilling sight appears, a swarm of monsters with glowing red eyes, unmistakably charging straight for the school. From the window, the students watch in terror as the number of monsters just keeps increasing, swarming the area below. Overwhelmed with fear, Katon turns to Rikudo, desperately asking him what they should do. Rikudo is grimly silent, grasping the severity of the situation. Suddenly, winged monsters crash through the windows into the hallway, sending students running and screaming in every direction. A terrified female student with glasses is cornered by one of the screeching, harpy-like creatures. The monster lunges, and with a splash of blood, it viciously attacks the students. The hallway echoes with screams of "No!" Takebana, seeing the carnage, yells out in anger and disbelief, while other students flee for their lives. Stepping up amidst the chaos, a brave student named Issei takes charge, yelling for everyone to run while he prepares to hold the line. As winged monsters close in on him, Rikudo grabs a makeshift weapon, screaming with fierce determination that he is not going to die here. With a powerful yell, Rikudo steals his resolve, ready to face the monster head-on. He swings the heavy pole with all his might, landing a solid blow on the attacking creature. Outside, the invasion continues as more monsters, both on the ground and in the air, continue to swarm the school building. Elsewhere, Issei also joins the fight, landing a powerful punch directly into a goblin's face. A small group of students who manage to escape look back up the stairs. They are relieved to see Issei and Rikudo standing there, having survived their individual fights. Takebana calls up to them, asking if it's just the three of them and where the others are. Looking somber, Issei apologizes, confirming they got separated somewhere along the way. Elsewhere, another student is paralyzed with guilt, lamenting that he was entrusted to protect others, but failed as a monster appears behind him. But Takebana cuts him off, shouting to save the regrets for later as he draws his bow on an approaching monster. He sternly reminds the student to concentrate on surviving right now. The student, shaken, agrees. As Katon and Misaki run up the stairs, another winged monster swoops down to attack them from behind. The creature closes in on Katon, who is trapped on the staircase with nowhere to run. The monster dives, its claws outstretched, but at the last second it swerves past Katon. To Katon's shock, the creature ignores her completely and instead targets Misaki, who is further up the stairs. The monster grabs Misaki, who screams in terror, convinced that she is about to die. But before the monster can deliver the final blow, a metal pipe swings down with incredible force. It's Rikudo. He smashes the creature's head, killing it instantly and saving Misaki's life. Rikudo turns to ask if she is okay. A blushing Misaki stammers that she is, clearly flustered and grateful. Watching from the stairs, Katon looks at the slain monster, a shocking realization dawning on her. The monster had deliberately avoided her. The moment of reflection is cut short as Takebana shouts for Rikudo's attention, warning him that the lower floor is crawling with monsters. Looking down, they see that the path is completely blocked by a horde of goblins and other creatures, making escape that way impossible. Thinking fast, Rikudo declares that if down isn't an option, their only choice is to go up. He leads the way, and the others follow. Rikudo announces the new plan to the group. They're making a run for the roof. Takebana realizes they're back to where they started. Rikudo rallies the survivors, urging them not to get separated because they have to survive together. With renewed determination, the group charges up the stairs. Meanwhile, in another part of the school, a lone student pants as he runs desperately down an empty hallway. His escape is cut short as a horrifying, giant spider-like monster corners him. He screams in despair, not wanting to die. As the monster's sharp leg descends upon him, the student shuts his eyes, accepting his fate. But at that exact moment, a voice echoes in his head and a strange digital window appears before him. It reads, "Your job is hero. Begin adventure." In disbelief, he questions if he could be a hero. As the prompt flashes, he makes his choice. Having accepted his new role, the system announces it is generating an evil vanquishing sword. The student feels a sudden surge of power coursing through him. Now armed with a sword, he stands transformed, ready to face the screeching monster that was about to kill him. With his newfound power, he swiftly strikes the spider, slicing through it with his new blade. He stands panting, surrounded by the gory remains of the monster, with two female classmates behind him. He looks at his hands, marveling at his newfound power. The girls behind him squeal his name in adoration, Hayashi-sama. In his mind, a glorious daydream begins. Two girls, whom he identifies as Takebana-san and Kyuju-san, fawn over him, telling him how cool he was. The delusion continues as even Rikudo and Takebana appear, praising Hayashi and calling him their number one. Beaming with pride, Hayashi thanks everyone and declares that from now on, he will be the one to protect them all. But this was all just a final, fleeting dream. The horrifying reality is that he is completely entangled in the spider's web, muttering that he will be everyone's savior. As he vows to save everyone, the spider monster bites down, devouring him. his awakening was nothing but a hallucination in his final moments. The scene shifts. A girl lies helpless on the floor as a slime monster envelops her, while another girl runs away, ignoring her pleas to wait. The fleeing girl, Riko, turns back and coldly yells at the girl trapped by the slime, accusing her of being a traitor who tried to sell her out to the abusive Uyama-sensei. Riko declares they are not friends and says the girl should just die. But in that moment, a massive minotaur-like monster appears behind Riko. The minotaur lifts its axe and slaughters the fleeing students as the girl on the floor, Inamoto, watches in terror from within the slime. But her terror twists into madness. Inamoto begins to laugh maniacally, her body merging with the dark slime as she awakens to a new power, declaring that this world is the absolute worst. The story then flashes back, transitioning to a blood-stained school bathroom. The bathroom is splattered with blood, the desperate cries of someone not wanting to die echoing through the empty space. Inside a stall sits Uyama-sensei, beaten and tied to a toilet. He mutters to himself, vowing to survive and build his own personal paradise. Suddenly, the stall door creaks open, revealing a shadowy female figure that makes Uyama-sensei shriek in fear. It's Inamoto, now dressed in only her undergarments. She calmly states that she's found him, leaving the terrified teacher to stammer her name. With a chilling smile, Inamoto mocks him for making it all the way here while tied up, comparing his will to live to that of a cockroach. She leans in and asks the confused teacher an odd question. Does he have a dream he wants to fulfill? She reveals that she once had a dream herself, a simple, ordinary dream of finding true love, getting married, and building a happy family. And as she speaks of wanting to fulfill that dream, she reveals a hidden knife, causing Uyama-sensei to recoil in terror. Her expression hardens into one of pure hatred. She tells him she can no longer achieve her dream because he went and defiled her. Uyama-sensei begins to panic, begging for forgiveness and promising to do anything, to take responsibility for what he did. Ignoring his desperate pleas, Inamoto simply steps forward, her decision already made. With cold precision, she plunges the knife into his chest as he lets out a final, horrified scream. Uyama collapses to the floor, choking on his own blood. Inamoto stands over him and says coldly, "Of course you will, sensei, take responsibility." As he bleeds out, she continues, telling him that he won't just be taking responsibility for her, but for the whole class all by yourself. In his final moments, Uyama is tormented by horrifying visions of his victim's spirits, cursing his name and dragging him to hell. He begs and pleads for her to spare him, but his cries fall on deaf ears as Inamoto raises the bloody knife one last time. After a frenzy of brutal stabs, Inamoto stands panting over his corpse before breaking into laughter. She wonders aloud if, with this, he has finally paid the price for his sins. Elsewhere, the student Inamoto, having finally exacted her revenge on her abuser, descends into madness. With a crazed laugh, she declares that nothing matters anymore as a monstrous shadow, a reflection of her own broken psyche, envelops her. Meanwhile, Rikudo Kurigane and his classmates are desperately trying to escape the monster-infested school building. As he pulls Takebana Cotton up the stairs, he spots a glimmer of hope, the door to the roof. His friend Nishi, running behind them, questions the plan. But Rikudo, focused solely on getting them out of immediate danger, shouts back that they'll figure out their next steps once they get there. Without a second's hesitation, Rikudo throws his weight against the door, bursting out of the dark stairwell. The group stumbles onto the rooftop, but they are not alone. Another student, Seidu, stands waiting for them with an unsettling calm, stating he's been waiting. Initially, the students are flooded with relief, overjoyed to see another survivor. They happily call out his name, believing they've found a safe haven. But their relief turns to dread. With a sinister smile, Seidu announces that all the actors have finally assembled, revealing a terrifying, shadowy monster with glowing red eyes looming behind him. Seidu directs his attention to a shocked Rikudo Kurigane, confirming that he was the one Seidu was specifically waiting for. He then addresses the whole group, mockingly thanking them for coming to the roof and successfully escorting Takebana Cotton to him. Nishi asks Seidu if he's okay, confused by his strange words, but Rikudo, sensing the malicious intent, tells him to wait, realizing something is terribly wrong. Seidu drops all pretense, a wicked grin spreading across his face as a dark aura begins to emanate from him. He reveals the source of his confidence, a terrifying, Grim Reaper-like skeleton monster that materializes behind him. He claims this horrifying creature is on his side. The other students can only scream in absolute terror as they are confronted by the undead creature. Nishi, the group's fantasy expert, identifies the monster as an undead type, possibly a lick. The bigger question on his mind, however, is why it is standing with Seidu. Seidu casually confirms their fears, stating with a chilling smile, "Oh him, he's an ally you see." He explains how he gained his power, a quick flashback showing the monster in a coffin. In return for letting the creature use his body, he was granted immense power. This power, he reveals, is the myth summon system, which he describes as a bug that exists in their world. The lick places a hand on his shoulder, a sign of their pact. Nishi mishears the foreign word, myth, but Seidu coldly tells him that it's not something they need to know about. Changing the subject, Seidu grins and says, more importantly, as he begins to cast a spell, a glowing blue magic circle appearing at his fingertips. He unleashes his power, and a massive pillar of digital code erupts from the ground, blasting the students with a powerful shockwave. Rikudo, Takabana Katon, and Nishi are thrown back, their faces a mask of pure shock and disbelief at the power Seidu now wields. From within the glowing pillar, monstrous shapes begin to take form, materializing out of the digital ether. A horde of monsters is born from the light. Harpies, demons, and other grotesque beasts now stand ready to obey their new master, Seidu. Takabana Katon and Nishi are frozen in disbelief, their minds struggling to accept the horrifying reality. What was meant to be their escape has just become a cage, and their classmate is the zookeeper. The other students share their terror. A blonde girl clings to her friends, her brain completely scrambled by the impossible sight of monsters being summoned from a pillar of light. As Rikudo Kurigane stares at the pillar of digital code, he has a chilling realization. This phenomenon, the way the monsters are materializing, is exactly the same as what happened on the first day of the apocalypse. Seidu boasts surrounded by his Lick ally and newly summoned beasts. He proudly declares that this is his power and that he has obtained the ability to control the monsters. He admits that these are just weak monsters for now, but confidently states it won't be long until he can command even more powerful ones. Full of arrogance, he asks if they understand what this means. As long as he is around, they no longer have to fear the monsters that plague their world. Seidu then turns his attention to a stunned Takabana Katon, trying to reassure her that it's okay now. He promises that this time, he'll be the one to protect her. He continues his twisted proposal by insulting Rikudo Kurigane, telling Katon she no longer needs to rely on him. Katon is visibly shocked by his words, her hand clenching into a fist. With the skeletal lick looming over his shoulder, Seidu reaches out his hand, inviting Katon to come to him and live with him in this new world he plans to dominate. As another girl calls out to her in concern, Katon's expression hardens. With cold resolve, she gives her answer, "There's no way in hell." Seidu is taken aback by her blunt rejection. Katon begins to question him, acknowledging his newfound power but hinting at a darker truth. She confronts him directly, asking if the monsters that attacked their classroom just moments ago were summoned by him. Unfazed, Seidu casually admits, "Yeah, so what?" Katon's voice trembles with anger as she presses him further. She asks if he knew that his monsters killed one of the girls from their class, and likely others who were separated from the group. Seidu's response is chillingly indifferent. And he shrugs it off, stating that after all, he doesn't need anyone but Katon, revealing the true depth of his narcissism. Disgusted and furious, Katon clenches her tie, her knuckles white. She looks at Seidu with utter contempt, preparing to say what's on her mind. With a piercing gaze, she tells him the awful truth. "You aren't human anymore." Seidu can only respond with a confused huh. She explains that their group has fought against all kinds of monsters so far, goblins, slimes, and orcs. Tears streaming down her face, she delivers the final, crushing verdict. Because she has seen true monsters, she can tell that right now, Seidu is the worst monster of them all. Her words hang in the air, stunning Seidu into silence. As Rikudo looks on, another girl rushes to Katon's side, offering her support. Completely shattered by her condemnation, Seidu can only mutter her name in disbelief. Behind him, the Lick's red eyes flare, sensing its host's distress and foreshadowing the conflict to come. Rikudo Kurigane is in agony, tears streaming down his face as a dark aura emanates from him. He desperately denies being a monster, muttering that it's all wrong. The monstrously transformed Seidu unleashes his power, causing his friends to shout in alarm, recognizing that the situation has just taken a turn for the worse. Seidu's dark energy erupts, and the force of it sends a shockwave across the rooftop, causing the other students to scream in terror. Rikudo and another student brace themselves against the powerful shockwave unleashed by Seidu. The sheer pressure of Seidu's power washes over the students, who are terrified and amazed by the display. Now fully transformed into a monster with a skull-like mask, Seidu pants, catching his breath after his powerful outburst. Consumed by jealousy, Seidu screams Katon's name, questioning why she prefers Rikudo Kurigane over him and declaring that if he can't have her, no one can. With a furious roar, Seidu summons a horde of new monsters, werewolf-like creatures and winged beasts, ordering them to kill everyone. As the monsters charge, Rikudo quickly steps in front of the girls, telling Takabana and Kyuju to get back while he prepares to face the threat. Rikudo lunges forward, swinging a metal pipe to single-handedly take on one of the charging monsters. He manages to block a vicious strike from a lizard-like monster, the impact reverberating through the pipe he's using as a makeshift weapon. Seeing him fighting alone against the beasts, Kyuju cries out his name in worry. Suddenly, the blonde girl, Katon, screams in terror, warning Kyuju that there is a monster right behind her. A massive, muscular red monster looms over Kyuju, who is completely unaware of the immediate danger she is in. Just as the monster is about to strike, a figure suddenly appears between them to intercept the attack. Rikudo has thrown himself in the way, taking the monster's powerful blow to protect Kyuju, who can only watch in shock. Rikudo gasps in pain, coughing up blood as the monster's arm slams into him with brutal force. Despite the devastating hit, Rikudo fights back, swinging his pipe and smashing it against the red monster's body. Kyuju screams Rikudo's name, her face filled with horror as she watches him take the ferocious attack. The force of the monster's attack sends Rikudo flying through the air, his body limp. His friends can only watch in disbelief, shouting his name as he's thrown across the rooftop. Rikudo lies motionless against a wall, while Kyuju and Cotton rush toward his fallen body. The girls reach his side, finding him bleeding on the ground. Horrified, Cotton realizes how dire the situation is. Kyuju gently touches Rikudo's face, her own expression turning to one of pure terror. As she looks at his still form, she whispers in disbelief, unable to accept what she's seeing. The horrifying realization hits them as everything goes dark. He's not breathing. In the darkness of his fading consciousness, Rikudo hears a voice calling his name. He finds himself standing in a familiar place, wondering what's happening. He recognizes the location as his own room and questions why he's there, remembering he was just at school. Suddenly, he senses another presence. A voice mockingly asks if this is his room, and Rikudo is startled by the figure standing behind him. The figure taunts him, calling him a pathetic dead guy. Rikudo turns, his face filled with dread as he recognizes the voice. It's Surato, his old bully, who greets him with a smug look. This is a memory from Rikudo's traumatic past. Back in reality, Kyuju desperately shakes Rikudo's lifeless body, pleading for him to answer her. Overwhelmed with grief and horror, Kyuju lets out a heart-wrenching scream, holding onto Rikudo's body. Katon and Issei look on in utter shock and disbelief, unable to accept that their friend, Rikudo-senpai, is gone. Fueled by rage over Rikudo's death, Nishi attacks the red monster, screaming in fury. He glances back at Rikudo's unmoving form, muttering in disbelief and sorrow. As another monster lunges at him, Nishi falls into despair, believing that without Rikudo, they are all doomed. Just in the nick of time, Yamaoka-senpai intervenes, slaying a monster that was about to attack Nishi. Nishi looks up in surprise at his senior, who has just saved him from certain death. Yamaoka-senpai turns to Nishi, his expression firm, and tells his junior not to give up hope. He rallies the group, declaring that no matter the circumstances, they will keep fighting to the end, because that is the kind of man their leader, Rikudo Kurogane, is. Yamaoka's words strike a chord with Nishi, who looks on with newfound realization. Issei and Cotton are also moved by Yamaoka-senpai's speech, finding a glimmer of hope in his words. Nishi, now filled with determination, agrees with his senior. He remembers Rikudo's unwavering resolve and how he always pushed forward. He recalls how Rikudo never gave up, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed. Nishi thinks about how they all relied on Rikudo's strength. He realizes that if he gives up on surviving now, he wouldn't be able to face Rikudo in the afterlife. With renewed purpose, Nishi draws his bow and lets loose an arrow, taking down one of the monsters. Inspired by their leader's memory, the rest of the team joins the fight. Issei follows Nishi's lead, leaping into action and swinging a scythe-like weapon at another monster. Sato laughs maniacally at their renewed hope, declaring that it's useless because Kurogane is already dead. He then directs a cruel taunt at Katon, reminding her that Rikudo wanted to be a doctor, a detail that causes Kyuju's expression to suddenly shift. Sato's cruel words trigger a memory for Kyuju. With tears in her eyes, she looks at Rikudo with newfound determination. She remembers Rikudo once told her he wanted to become a doctor, a detail that gives her a spark of hope. Katon looks on, startled by Kyuju's sudden change in demeanor. With adrenaline kicking in, Kyuju realizes she can perform artificial respiration. Declaring that she absolutely won't give up, she begins to administer CPR. She reasons that if the physical impact was what caused his heart to stop, there's still a chance to save him. It might not be too late. Watching Kyuju desperately try to save Rikudo, Katon is inspired. She knows she has to do her part while the others are busy fighting. Katon realizes she can't make dynamite again like she did with the golem. She looks around, trying to figure out what she can make with the materials available. Her eyes land on the broken steel pipe that Rikudo was using, and an idea begins to form. She has a flash of inspiration, recalling undead monsters from fantasy settings, like a lick, which often have specific weaknesses. As her friends fight for their lives in the background, Katon realizes there is something she can do to turn the tide. Though she admits there's no scientific evidence her idea will work, she decides it's worth a shot. She picks up the pipe and begins to modify it, causing it to glow with a strange energy. Meanwhile, the monstrous Sato watches the team fight on, contemptuously wondering what they all see in a guy like Kurogane. An arrow fired by Nishi hits Sato directly in the skull, but the monster seems unfazed by the attack. Issei shouts that jealousy is uncool, while the others affirm that they all like and appreciate Rikudo, which is why they continue to fight. Sato lets out a chilling laugh, covering his skeletal face as if he finds their loyalty amusing. Enraged by their defiance, Sato screams that he'll send them all to meet Rikudo and summons a swarm of winged skeletal monsters to attack them. The scene flashes back to Rikudo's subconscious, where his bully, Surato, stands over his defeated body, saying it serves him right. Surato grabs Rikudo's face, taunting him and asking why he's glaring. He brutally kicks Rikudo, yelling that he's dead and should act like it. The torment continues as Surato screams that Rikudo's existence is meaningless, and that, unlike him, Rikudo can't do anything and is loved by no one. Surato continues his vicious assault, calling Rikudo a loser, garbage, and a worthless dead man. With a final, savage kick, Surato screams at him to just lie down and die already. Beaten and broken in his own mind, Rikudo finally gives in, thinking to himself that Surato is right, and he might as well be dead. Drifting in a dark void, he internalizes his bully's words, seeing himself as worthless, meaningless, and just a dead man who happens to be living. He thinks about how he always tried his best, but in the end, he felt he couldn't do anything right. Completely exhausted and having had enough, Rikudo decides to give up and go back, his form dissolving into a black substance on the floor of his mental prison. As Rikudo gives up, letting himself sink into the darkness, a faint voice cuts through the void, calling his name and pulling him back from the brink. The voice grows louder, desperately screaming his name. In his mind, he feels a hand grab his, anchoring him to reality. A vision of Takebana appears, telling him he can't go back to being alone. He then sees all of his friends, Kyuju, Katon, Nishi, Issei, and Yamaoka, smiling and waiting for him to come back. He has found his place, his chosen family. Takebana smiles warmly, calling him Riku-chan and asking him to go back with them. Her voice and the image of his friends reach him in the deepest part of his despair, and a single tear escapes his eye. Back in his mental prison, Rikudo whispers Takebana's name, much to the confusion of his tormentor, Sorato. Finding strength, Rikudo begins to push himself up, telling the shocked Sorato that while he might have chosen death before, things are different now. He gets to his feet, declaring that he now has a place he needs to return to. Sorato flies into a rage, calling him a stubborn brat, but Rikudo simply apologizes. Rikudo tells him that no matter what Sorato says to him now, he will no longer listen. He catches Sorato's punch, ready to fight back. With a defiant roar of "I am alive," Rikudo lands a powerful blow, shattering the illusion of his past tormentor. The manifestation of his trauma cracks and shatters like glass, unable to believe that Rikudo is fighting back. Filled with a new will to live, Rikudo promises to keep fighting for as long as his life lasts. As the nightmare of his past shatters, the scene returns to reality, where Takebana is still performing CPR, sensing a change. Suddenly, Rikudo lurches upwards, coughing violently. He's alive. Takebana calls out his name in shock and relief. He looks up at her, and she stammers his name again, tears of relief in her eyes as she realizes he's truly back. Rikudo tells a surprised Takebana that he was saved thanks to her. He explains that he was lost in a dark, empty void, and if she hadn't called out to him, he might have faded away into nothingness. He gives her a genuine, heartfelt smile and thanks her. Takebana is left stunned and blushing. Flustered, she stammers out a "you're welcome," thinking to herself that even if she doesn't fully understand, seeing his real smile makes it all worthwhile. Their moment is cut short as Katon runs up, holding the modified pipe and exclaiming her relief that he is okay. Katon tells him that now is not the time for sentiments and hands him his newly upgraded weapon. Rikudo takes the glowing weapon, looking at it in confusion. Kyuju excitedly explains that it's his trusty steel pipe, which she modified using a silver mirror reaction, basing her idea on fantasy tropes. Kyuju admits that her idea is just based on a game, and she isn't sure if a silver weapon will actually be effective, but Rikudo looks at the modified pipe with conviction. Trusting her ingenuity, Rikudo holds up the newly forged weapon and declares with confidence that it will definitely work. He turns to Kyuju with a grateful smile, telling her she's really dependable. He tells the girls he'll be right back, and they wish him luck, telling him to be careful. Rikudo leaps back into the fray, rejoining his friends who are stunned to see him alive and well. The boys are overjoyed. Issei exclaims that he knew the punk was still alive, while the others express their immense relief. Seeing his nemesis back on his feet, the monstrous Sato seethes with pure fury, his eyes glowing as he growls Kurigane's name. Revitalized and rearmed, Rikudo takes charge. He tells his friends that it's sink or swim and orders them to back him up. Though surprised by his sudden command, the team watches as he charges forward, his new silver weapon gleaming. Nishi immediately understands Rikudo's plan and draws his bow, ready to provide covering fire. The team now works as a cohesive unit. While Rikudo leads the charge, Nishi and Yamaoka-senpai attack from a distance, clearing out the smaller monsters with arrows and spears. As Rikudo presses forward, a werewolf-like monster lunges at him from the side. Before the beast can reach him, it is pelted by a volley of rocks, stopping it in its tracks. Issei stands guard, defiantly throwing rocks and declaring that he won't let anyone lay a finger on Kurigane-senpai. Seeing his friends all fighting together to support him, Rikudo smiles with gratitude. He sincerely thanks them all and leaps toward the massive red monster, his silver-coated pipe ready to strike. Watching the revitalized team fight back, Sato is consumed by an obsessive rage, muttering Kurigane's name over and over. Finally, his hatred boils over. Screaming Kurigane's name, Sato charges forward, ready to end this fight once and for all. The battle reaches its climax as Rikudo, with a heavy heart, leaps into the air to strike down the monstrous form of his former schoolmate, Seidu. With a look of regret and resolve, Rikudo apologizes to the man trapped within the monster, knowing what he must do. He drives his weapon through the creature's skull. Blood erupts as Seidu lets out a guttural groan, the blow landing true. Seidu releases a final, agonizing shriek as the last of his life is extinguished in a brutal display of violence. In his dying moment, the monster cries out, not wanting to die, his arm outstretched towards Katon Takebana, who watches in horror. As Seidu's body dissolves into black particles, his last thought is a fading whisper of Katon's name. Tears stream down Katon's face as she whispers Seidu's name, mourning the tragic end of someone she once knew. Overwhelmed with sorrow, Katun turns away from the scene, offering a heartfelt apology to the fallen Seidu. The other students watch in amazement as the monsters Seidu was controlling suddenly begin to disappear, leaving them to wonder what just happened. One of the students realizes this is just like what happened with the golem, correctly guessing that the one controlling the monsters has been defeated. His duty done and the immediate threat gone, an utterly exhausted Rikudo finally lets go, collapsing to the ground. Under the bright, clear sky, the survivors celebrate. After fighting so desperately for their lives, the simple fact of their survival truly hits home. Lying on his back and watching his friends rejoice, Rikudo can't help but smile. It's a wonderful feeling just to be alive. Some time passes and the day of departure arrives. The group is all set to leave, having packed a van with essential supplies for the journey ahead. Rikudo and his friends stand together, taking one last look at the school that served as their shelter, preparing to finally leave it behind. A quiet, lonely feeling hangs in the air as they get ready to depart. As Rikudo says, a lot has happened in this place. They remember the painful memories made here, the losses they couldn't prevent, the people they could have saved, but they know they can't let regret stop them from moving forward. They steel their resolve. Pushing onward, despite the pain and loss, is what it truly means to be alive. Nishi and Katun share a smile, a silent agreement passing between them. They're ready for whatever comes next. The friends they're leaving behind see them off with encouragement. Kyuju gives a heartfelt farewell to Kurigane, who is fired up to do his best. With their friends wishing them well, Rikudo leads his group forward. It's time to head to their next destination, Amishima. The van pulls away, speeding toward the open road and the uncertain future that awaits them. Rikudo and the others travel to their next destination, Amishima, driving full speed ahead with the belief that there is hope in their future. But the road to Amishima is far from safe. The path ahead is littered with the defeated bodies of Medusa-like monsters, a clear sign of a recent, deadly battle. Surveying the carnage is a mysterious, hooded figure. They stand silently amidst the slain creatures, their purpose and identity a complete unknown, another enigma in this perilous world. Meanwhile, the mysterious hooded figure takes action, pinning a note to a pole with a dagger. The note serves as a crucial warning for anyone who might pass through. This whole area is their den. Don't look them in the eyes, use a mirror. With their warning left behind, the silver-haired stranger gives one last look, their expression unreadable. As they speed away on a motorcycle, a sense of foreboding hangs in the air. An even stronger enemy will soon stand in the group's way. A few days after leaving the school, the group continues their journey down a highway littered with abandoned cars, their destination set for Amishima. Along the way, they encounter various monsters. The van passes a herd of unicorns, a reminder that some creatures in this new world pose no threat, while others are deadly. Inside the van, the team settles in for the ride. Katun is driving, Rikudo navigates with a map, and the others rest in the back. Nishi leans forward from the back seat, anxiously asking Rikudo for an update on their whereabouts. Rikudo consults the map and points to their location, reassuring Nishi that they aren't much further from their destination. From outside, the van continues steadily down the road. Nishi is relieved to hear they should have enough gas to make it. Rikudo notices Nishi's worried expression and asks him what he's thinking about. Nishi opens up, reminding Rikudo about the little sister he mentioned in the past. He explains that due to a complicated family situation, he was separated from his sister when they were younger. Luckily, she lives near their destination, Amishima. Nishi clings to the hope that she was able to evacuate safely. But his hope is immediately followed by doubt. He thinks about how brutal the world has become, imagining grim scenarios. With a heavy sigh, Nishi resigns himself to the possibility of the worst, believing it's best not to get his hopes up. His pessimistic words hang in the air, drawing the concerned attention of both Rikudo and Katun. Rikudo turns to him with a reassuring smile, confidently telling Nishi that it's all right and that he is sure his sister is fine. When Nishi asks how he could possibly know that, Rikudo simply states, "Well, because she's your sister, you know." Nishi is taken aback as Rikudo explains that, as his sister, she must be tough and tenacious, just like him. Rikudo's words are backed by a flashback, reminding Nishi that his own, nuts determination, is what has allowed them to survive against impossible odds. He recalls their past battles, emphasizing that Nishi's tenacity in the face of danger is proof of his strength. Therefore, Rikudo concludes with a smile, there's no point in stressing over it. His logic makes Katun smile warmly. Nishi, flustered but secretly pleased, retorts that Rikudo is the one person he doesn't want to hear that from, likely because of Rikudo's own reckless tendencies. The friendly jab makes Katun laugh. Despite his teasing complaint, Nishi's mood has clearly lifted. He pats Rikudo's seat, accepting his friend's encouragement and agreeing there's no point in worrying for now. His spirits lifted, Nishi enthusiastically agrees. They'll deal with finding his sister after they reach Amishima. His sudden change in mood makes Katun giggle. But the lighthearted moment is instantly shattered as a massive, dark shadow suddenly falls over their van. Panic erupts inside the van as one of the students spots the new threat, shouting a warning that an enemy has its eyes on them. Nishi peers out the window and his blood runs cold. A massive, winged creature is flying alongside them. It's a huge red dragon, and it immediately dives from the sky, heading straight for their vehicle. The dragon lets out a deafening roar as it descends upon them, its sheer size promising destruction. The students can only scream in terror. In the back, the students are in a full-blown panic, screaming that a huge dragon is coming right after them. Nishi yells at Katon, desperately asking if she can lose it. With a grim and determined expression, she agrees to try. Without hesitation, Katon slams her foot down on the accelerator, pushing the van's engine to its absolute limit. Gripping the steering wheel tightly, she yells for everyone to hold on as she prepares for some evasive driving. The dragon smashes an abandoned car on the road beside them, but Katon masterfully swerves out of the way just in time. The beast lets out an angry growl, frustrated that its initial attack missed the speeding van. The dragon doesn't relent, pulling back its massive wings for another powerful flap. It lunges forward again, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Watching from the rear window, the students cry out in fear. The dragon is too fast and is about to catch them. With a thunderous roar, the dragon closes in, its giant maw opened wide right behind them, ready to crush the entire vehicle. The students in the back brace for impact, screaming in absolute despair that they're done for. Just then, Nishi spots a potential escape route. He points frantically, yelling at Katon to head for the next exit. He sees the upcoming ramp as their only chance to get off the expressway and hopefully shake the massive beast. Katon immediately responds, acknowledging his command and sharply turning the wheel towards the off-ramp. The dragon dives to intercept, but Katon's quick thinking allows them to swerve onto the exit just beneath the monster's attack. As they speed down the ramp, it seems for a glorious second that they've shaken it off, earning a cheer of relief. But their hope is crushed instantly. The dragon roars, reappearing from above. It's right back on their tail. Nishi curses the creature's persistence. Out of options, he turns to Rikudo in desperation, asking what they should do. Rikudo's face is grim. He yells that there's no way they can fight the beast. Their only option is to lose it somehow. Nishi can only agree in terror. As the dragon bears down on them, the group shares a single, desperate thought. They can't die here, not after coming so far. Meanwhile, standing on an overpass high above the chase, the mysterious silver-haired figure watches the scene unfold. They raise a pair of binoculars to their eyes, focusing in on the chaos happening down below. Through their lenses, they get a clear view of the van speeding down the ramp, with the massive dragon in hot pursuit. Lowering their binoculars, the observer takes in the scene, a thoughtful, serious expression on their face. Their striking, ice-blue eyes watch the desperate struggle between the students and the monster. After a moment of observation, they let out a sharp click of the tongue, a sound of clear annoyance. Without another word, they swing their leg over a sleek blue motorcycle parked nearby. Revving the engine, they speed away from the overpass, heading down the highway. They disappear into the distance, leaving their intentions and their connection to the events a complete mystery. Back in the chase, the dragon is still relentlessly pursuing the van, letting out another furious roar. The students in the back are hysterical, screaming for the monster to go away, certain it's about to tear them to pieces. Deciding he has to do something, Nishi leans out the window, draws his bow, and takes aim at the beast's head. He lets the arrow fly, a desperate attempt to do any damage he can to the massive creature. The arrow strikes true, hitting the dragon right on the side of its face. But it has no effect. The arrow bounces harmlessly off the dragon's thick scales. It doesn't even flinch, and Rikudo realizes all they can do is run. As they swerve, one of the students screams out a warning. They're heading straight for a concrete support pillar. Katon's expression is one of pure focus as she grips the wheel, her knuckles white. With incredible skill, she pulls the van into a sharp drift, scraping the side against the pillar, but narrowly avoiding a fatal crash. The passengers are violently thrown against each other. The dragon, unable to make such a sharp turn, slams headfirst into the pillar with a sickening crunch. Looking back at the dazed monster, the students feel a surge of hope. They've finally shaken it off. The mood instantly turns to celebration. The group praises Katon for her incredible driving, with one student noting she could be a professional racer. But their relief is instantly shattered by a sudden, jarring lurch from the van. The van begins to slow down rapidly. In a panic, Katon yells that she's flooring the accelerator, but the engine isn't responding. A look of pure dread crosses Rikudo's face as the horrible reality sets in. It can't be, not after they had come so far. Engine trouble, the van is a sitting duck. Having recovered from its crash, the dragon turns on them with a low growl. It lets out a triumphant roar and launches into the air, swooping down for the final kill. It's coming. With no time to spare, Rikudo takes command, yelling at the top of his lungs for everyone to get out of the car. The students scramble out of the vehicle, scattering in a desperate attempt to escape as the dragon's massive talons descend upon them. The dragon smashes the van with a single, devastating blow, sending debris flying as the students run for their lives. In the chaos, Kyuju trips and falls. She looks up in terror as the dragon looms over her, completely exposed. Frozen in fear, Kyuju can only plead for her life as the dragon raises its bladed wing to strike her down. At the last possible second, Kurigane dives in, tackling Kyuju and pulling her into his arms to shield her from the fatal blow. Safe in his arms, a stunned and blushing Kyuju looks up at her savior, stammering his name, Kurigane-kun. Continuing from the last chapter, a fierce red wyvern lets out a terrifying roar as it lunges towards Rikudo and Kyuju. Rikudo holds Kyuju protectively, while she screams in terror. Just in the nick of time, Yamoka, their senior, intercepts the beast, impressively stopping its attack by lifting a massive chunk of debris to counter its charge. As Rikudo carries Kyuju to safety, he looks back in horror, shouting Yamoka's name as the wyvern's jaws clamp down on their protector. From a distance, another member of their group, Takebana, takes aim. He shouts to create an opening, firing an arrow with precision. The arrow finds its mark, striking the wyvern directly in its eye and neck area, causing it a great deal of pain. The injured wyvern shrieks in agony. Seizing the opportunity, Takebana urges everyone to escape while they can. As they run, Takebana asks Rikudo what their next move is. Rikudo, still focused on escaping, says they need to find a safer place first. Suddenly, Rikudo comes to an abrupt halt, sensing something is wrong. The others, including Katon, are startled and ask why he stopped. The entire group looks up in disbelief and terror, their faces pale with shock at what they see appearing before them. The sky is filled with more wyverns. They are flying among the buildings, revealing that it wasn't just one monster, but a whole flock. One of the wyverns flies ominously overhead, solidifying their dreadful realization. The entire area is the creature's territory. The group stands back to back, completely surrounded by the menacing wyverns that have landed on the street and buildings around them. Panic sets in as Takebana alerts Rikudo to another wyvern approaching from behind them. They are trapped. With a guttural growl, the wyvern that was struck by the arrow earlier now stands before them, having caught up. Realizing the futility of running, Takebana declares that they're completely surrounded with no way out. As wyverns close in from all sides, Rikudo grabs Katon and desperately yells for her to run, refusing to give up. Suddenly, the sharp sound of a gunshot rings out, firing what appears to be a flare or a blank round. Startled by the unexpected noise and a strange wisp of light shooting into the sky, the wyverns look up in confusion. An intense flash of light erupts in the sky, blindingly bright. The humans shield their eyes as the wyverns begin to cry out in pain. The wyverns writhe and screech, clearly agonized by the brilliant light that continues to shine down on them. Unable to bear the light, the flock of wyverns takes to the sky and begins to flee, much to Rikudo's surprise. As the dragons retreat, the group wonders what just happened and what could have caused that mysterious, powerful light. A calm voice cuts through the confusion, saying, "Looks like I made it just in time." The group turns towards the sound. Their savior is revealed, a mysterious person with short white hair and stylish clothes, sitting casually on a motorcycle, looking cool and unfazed by the recent danger. As the last of the wyverns retreats into the distance, the city is quiet once more. The group is left staring at their unexpected rescuer, trying to process what just happened. Rikudo's group stares in stunned silence at the mysterious person on the motorcycle who just saved them, surprised to see another survivor. Holding the flare gun, the stranger explains that wyverns are attracted to shiny things, which is why the flare worked to distract them. However, they warn that the flare is just a temporary trick and the wyverns will be back soon. They point towards an escape route and tell the group to run, but Katon hesitates, asking who they are. Losing patience, the stranger yells at them to hurry up, asking if they want to end up as wyvern bait. Katon stammers out an apology, startled by their intensity. As they consider their options, Takebana whispers to Rikudo, admitting that while the stranger is suspicious, they don't have many choices. Rikudo agrees, stating that in their current situation, they have no other options but to trust their mysterious savior. Takebana smiles, agreeing with his decision. The white-haired stranger lets out a simple HMPH and turns their motorcycle, ready to lead the way. With the decision made, Rikudo shouts for everyone to follow, and the group runs after the motorcycle. Their savior leads them to a subway entrance, urging them to hurry inside. Kyuju, terrified, runs screaming towards the stairs. Just as she's about to make it to safety, a wyvern swoops down from behind, letting out a ferocious roar as it closes in on her. Kyuju screams as the wyvern lunges, its head getting dangerously close just as she disappears down the subway stairs. Safely inside the subway station, the group catches their breath. Kyuju is exhausted and relieved, stating she thought she was a goner. Takebana agrees it was a close call, while the wyvern lurks just outside the entrance. The white-haired stranger looks back with annoyance, muttering that this is the worst. Rikudo stands behind them, alert and holding a pipe, as one of the other students calls out to him as Kurigane-senpai. Their savior turns back to them, coldly stating that thanks to them, the plan is ruined. Rikudo and Takebana are confused by the accusation. With a condescending smile, the stranger calls them idiots for driving a car through the area. The rest of the group is taken aback by the harsh words. The stranger remains silent and unimpressed as Rikudo and the others stand before them, still shaken from the recent chase. Rikudo, ever the leader, steps forward. He acknowledges that they don't know the stranger's circumstances, but sincerely thanks them for the rescue. The stranger seems irritated by the formal thanks, clicking their tongue in annoyance before turning away without a word. As Rikudo calls out to them, the stranger gets on their motorcycle and tells the group to either follow or not. They don't seem to care. After a moment of tense silence, Rikudo makes the call. He looks at his friends and simply says, "Let's go." The group cautiously follows the motorcycle, heading deeper into the dark, abandoned underground station. Rikudo asks if it's safe to proceed and questions what other monsters might be lurking. Their guide coolly replies that the whole area is fine because they've already cleared it out. Rikudo questions what they mean by all. The stranger correctly guesses their destination is Amishima and reveals that Rikudo's group isn't the only one heading there. Takebana is shocked to hear there are other people around. The stranger confirms that there's a fairly large group of survivors up ahead. The stranger adds that joining them is probably a better option than wandering around on the dangerous surface. Rikudo listens intently, considering the proposal. The rest of the group celebrates their apparent safety, relieved that they've been saved. Takebana expresses how worried he was, hopeful that things will finally work out. Takebana notices Rikudo's silence and questions him. Unlike the others, Rikudo remains tense and observant, not yet convinced of their safety. Meanwhile, Kyuju and Katon seem to be charmed by their mysterious, white-haired savior, Jinko. After walking for a long time through the dark tunnel, Takebana begins to complain, asking Jinko if it's much further. Jinko simply replies that it's just ahead. The group sees a bright light at the end of the tunnel. Takebana realizes that the light means they've reached the shelter. As they emerge from the tunnel, they're greeted by the sight of a makeshift survivor camp built on the subway tracks, complete with tents and a fire. The group lets out a cheer of relief. Kyuju and one of the other students are amazed, exclaiming that it's a whole underground neighborhood. Rikudo pulls Katon and a tired Takebana up onto the main platform. However, Takebana's initial excitement fades as he observes the other survivors. The atmosphere in the camp is grim and desolate. The survivors are sitting in silence, looking exhausted and dejected, with some bearing injuries. The group takes in the somber mood of the camp, a stark contrast to their own relief just moments before. Suddenly, a man's voice cuts through the quiet, calling out to their guide, Jinkuo Yu. Finally, the group learns the name of their white-haired savior. A hostile-looking man in a red shirt, Ijime, flanked by two others, confronts Jinko, calling her a little shit. Ijime aggressively grabs Jinko's jacket, accusing her of leaving their hunt in shambles. He furiously asks if she thinks she can just waltz back in after what she did, slamming her against the wall. Ijime pins Jinko against the wall, grabbing her by the hair. He berates her for doing whatever she pleases and asks if she's forgotten that the rules are everything in this place. His threats become more cryptic and menacing as he leans in, asking if she wants to become a rice cooker. Ignoring Jinko's glare, Ijime demands she say something and raises his fist, preparing to strike her. But before his punch can land, a hand suddenly shoots out and stops him. It's Rikudo. He has grabbed Ijime's wrist, calmly but firmly telling him to stop. Jinko and Ijime both look surprised. Ijime is taken aback by the interference. A dark, menacing aura with glowing red eyes emanates from Rikudo, showing his hidden, intimidating side. As Rikudo tightens his grip, Ijime grunts in pain, shocked by the newcomer's unexpected strength. The sudden turn of events leaves Ijime and his companions speechless, staring in disbelief at Rikudo's group. The commotion draws the attention of other survivors. Annoyed by the interruption, Ijime looks past Rikudo and demands to know who the hell these newcomers are. Ijime's gaze falls upon Rikudo's friends, who stand firm behind him. He scoffs at what he perceives as a defiant look in their eyes. Enraged by Rikudo's defiance, Ijime sneers, calling them a bunch of rebels who think the rules don't matter. He rallies his men to attack, but just as they are about to lunge forward with their knives, a new voice commands them to stop. A man with striking red hair appears at the top of the stairs, ordering them to desist at once. Both Ijime and Rikudo are surprised by the newcomer. The red-haired man calmly walks down the stairs, expressing his disappointment. He looks at Ijime and asks, "What good does it do if you disregard the rules yourselves?" Ijime, suddenly nervous, recognizes him as Hizaki-san and tries to blame Rikudo's group. Hizaki gives him a chilling, closed-eye smile that immediately silences him. A terrified Ijime quickly retracts his accusation. Hizaki turns to Rikudo's group with a welcoming gesture, apologizing for Ijime's behavior and explaining that he's just riled up after returning from a hunt. Rikudo and Takebana exchange a look, confused about what this hunt could be. Hizaki correctly deduces that they were on their way to Amishima City, which Rikudo confirms. With a bright smile, Hizaki declares that in that case, they should help each other out, much to Takebana's surprise. Hizaki extends an invitation. "By all means, won't you join our community?" Jinko watches from the sidelines, looking skeptical. Hizaki addresses the gathered crowd, declaring that it's everyone's last hope to make their way to Amishima City. His words resonate with the crowd of survivors. Rikudo and Takebana listen intently, processing the shared goal. Hizaki then leads Rikudo's group away from the main area, towards the station's ticket gates. He leads them to a station office, offering them a formal welcome. Standing before the group, Hizaki says, "On behalf of everyone, allow me to welcome you with open arms." He places a hand on his chest and introduces himself with a charming smile. "I'm the leader here, Hizaki. It's a pleasure to meet you." Takebana, still holding his bow, steps forward and asks Hizaki to explain the circumstances of their community. Hizaki readily agrees, saying he'll start from the very beginning. He begins his tale, the day the Great Calamity occurred. All across the country, the vast majority of humanity lost their lives on that day. He explains that it was only natural, as one monster emerged from every single smartphone in existence, a truly staggering number. The military would have been one thing, but the event was so sudden that they didn't stand a chance against the overwhelming onslaught. As a result of this sudden, unstoppable wave of monsters, modern society was instantly demolished. Hizaki adds that, according to rumors, there was another, even more devastating event. Enormous dragons, like something out of a fairy tale, allegedly appeared in the middle of military bases all over the world, completely wiping out the planet's armed forces in a single day. Tachibana is in utter disbelief at the news, stammering, "No way," as he struggles to comprehend the total annihilation of the military. Kyuju and Katon are horrified, realizing that this is why the JSDF never came to rescue them. Kyuju exclaims that the situation is insane and that they are in checkmate. Rikudo, however, finds the story a bit unnatural. He questions why, of all things, such powerful monsters would specifically appear at military facilities. He finds it oddly unsettling, theorizing that it's as though the monsters were deliberately directed by a single mastermind behind the great calamity. Lost in thought, Rikudo wonders who in the world could be behind such a coordinated attack, just as Hizaki prepares to continue his explanation. Hizaki continues, stating that while many people around the world have died, there are fortunately survivors, like his group and Rikudo's. He explains that this shelter is a gathering of such survivors, who work together to connect to the internet, learn of Amishima City's safety, and are now heading there. Hizaki clarifies that Amishima City is one of the few cities in the world that managed to withstand the calamity, and for them, it represents their last hope. The news fills Kyuju and another boy with excitement. They celebrate, realizing that if they can make it to Amishima, they'll be saved. Kyuju feels a true ray of hope. However, Rikudo cuts through the celebration. He looks at Hizaki and states a grim fact they learned on their journey: they can't get to Amishima by land. This sudden reality check shocks the hopeful students. Hizaki, the group's charismatic leader, turns to Rikudo with a smile. He confirms Rikudo's dark assessment of their situation, stating it's an accurate conjecture. Rikudo confirms Hizaki's statement, recalling their recent encounter with the monstrous wyverns that now control the surface. They were only saved by the timely intervention of a mysterious girl with white hair. Hizaki elaborates on their grim reality. The entire area, including the road that connects to Amishima City, has become a dragon's lair. He continues his explanation, stating that the skies are inhabited by countless wyverns. They attack in overwhelming numbers, making any resistance futile and escape via the surface impossible. However, the alternative isn't much better. Hizaki explains that reaching Amishima City through the underground is a Herculean task, leaving them pinned down. Nishi, Rikudo's friend, asks for clarification. The reason for the difficulty is a horrendous monster lurking in the underground, a grotesque, giant earthworm. Hizaki grimly adds that they've already lost several members to this creature. Despite the two threats, Hizaki explains that their current location in the station platform is safe. Fortunately, the worm is weak against light, making the underground vastly superior to the monster-filled surface. The grim reality of their situation sinks in. A blonde girl, Tachibana, panics, realizing they are trapped in a checkmate. "What are we supposed to do now?" she cries out in despair. Just as despair sets in, Hizaki's demeanor completely changes. "Please relax, everyone," he says with a beaming, confident smile. "Actually, we have a plan to break free of this situation." A wave of shock and hope washes over the students. "For reals," Nishi exclaims, as he and the two girls, Tachibana and Kyuju, look on in disbelief. "For that reason," Hizaki continues, radiating charisma, "we're working together and dividing duties, and working hard every day." He extends his hands in a welcoming gesture towards Rikudo's group. "What do you all think? Won't you add your strength to ours?" he asks, formally inviting them to join his community. Nishi turns to Rikudo, asking for his lead. Rikudo, ever the pragmatist, sizes up the situation. He states that, as before, they have no other choice but to cooperate as long as they remain there. With Rikudo's decision made, Nishi turns to the other members of their school group, confirming that they are all on board with cooperating. "Wonderful, thank you," Hizaki exclaims, pleased with their decision. As he begins to assign their roles, a girl with white hair, Jinko, appears in a nearby doorway. Hizaki dramatically announces their new job: hunting. The word hangs in the air as Jinko, the girl who saved them earlier, leans against the wall, observing the newcomers. Before Rikudo can fully process the assignment, Jinko speaks up, addressing Hizaki. "There aren't enough members," she states coolly, "so that's where you should send them." Rikudo and Nishi are left momentarily speechless, trying to understand the implications of Jinko's cold, pragmatic suggestion. Hizaki quickly puts on an apologetic face. "That's true. I feel bad asking you to do such a dangerous job, but someone has to do it after all." "All right, we'll have the boys join the hunting group," he declares. The decision is met with immediate shock from other students, who are now being roped into the dangerous task. "However, what shall we do with the girls?" Hizaki muses to Jinko. "We can't have them doing dangerous work." His tone suggests he sees them as less capable. After a brief, almost comical suggestion of rice cooking, Hizaki snaps his fingers and declares the girls' task with a flourish: digging. Jinko immediately dismisses his unserious suggestion, pointing out that there are already plenty of people assigned to cook rice. Hizaki listens, seeing she is all business. Jinko points out that digging would be difficult for the girls. Hizaki gives a small, thoughtful hum as if considering her words, acknowledging she has a point, but his cheerful demeanor doesn't falter for a second. However, any hope of a different task is instantly crushed. Very well, you two will join digging, Hizaki declares with finality. The announcement hits Takebana and Kyuju like a physical blow, their faces falling in utter dismay. As Jinko watches, Takebana and Kyuju complain about their new assignment. Takebana mutters that the job sounds awful and she'd prefer cooking, while Kyuju nervously wonders if they'll even be able to manage the difficult task of digging. Meanwhile, one of the other hunters claps a hand on Nishi's shoulder, telling the boys it's time for their first mission. Nishi looks back hesitantly as they are led away. The white-haired girl formally introduces herself to the group. Jinko, Fayus Jinko, a hunter. Nishi asks Jinko what their task is. What else? She replies bluntly, her expression unreadable. Hunting, of course, hunting. The mood darkens as the established hunting group confronts the newcomers. They state that because of Rikudo's group, they failed their previous objective, and now the newcomers will have to make up for the loss. Seeing Rikudo about to be led away, Kyuju calls out his name worriedly. Rikudo turns to reassure her, though his own expression is tense. We'll be all right, we'll make it back, he promises. Kyuju can only reply with a quiet okay, take care. Jinko, growing impatient with the farewells, cuts them short. Are you done talking? Come on already, she demands. Rikudo agrees and turns to leave. The leader of the hunters rallies the group. Let's go, guys, he orders. His subordinates respond with a nervous why yes sir, as they lead Rikudo's friends away. The scene flashes back, recounting how the town of Minami Azuhara, adjoining Amishima, became a wyvern nest, forcing all the survivors to take refuge in the underground station. The flashback continues, showing a group of survivors hurrying through a dark tunnel. One man complains that their guide is walking too fast. He points out that there's a woman and a child with them, but another survivor snaps back at him, warning that monsters could be anywhere in the tunnel and they can't afford to slow down. Suddenly, a powerful tremor shakes the tunnel, causing rubble to fall from the ceiling and stopping the survivors in their tracks. From the darkness ahead, the monstrous giant earthworm emerges with a terrifying screech, its massive maw wide open as it lunges at the horrified survivors. The memory ends, summarizing the inescapable situation. The direct line to Amishima City is the dwelling of the worm. With the surface and the underground both being a no-go, the survivors had no choice but to hide in the station. This is when Hizaki came up with his idea, a revival move. Nishi, hearing this story, questions what exactly this move is. One of the thuggish-looking hunters grins, revealing the core of the plan. The train, man, the train. He explains that the plan is to use the train's power to run down the giant earthworm monster. Nishi listens, looking uncertain but understanding the logic. The man continues, explaining that fortunately, there's a usable train at a nearby station. However, it's currently half buried in rubble and needs to be dug out and repaired. Another student has a moment of realization. Oh, so Takebana-senpai and Kyuju-senpai's digging is. He imagines the two girls struggling with pickaxes to clear the rubble. As Rikudo and the others are led into the dark tunnels, the student worries about the girls. I wonder if they can manage Tilda, he thinks to himself. Rikudo glances back at Jinko, who is following them, his mind racing with questions about their true intentions. The hunter leading them explains that while the digging team works on the train, the hunting team's job is to gather supplies for the community. Nishi acknowledges that he understands. Nishi summarizes the mission. Gathering supplies from the dangerous surface is what this group calls hunting. The hunter grins menacingly. That's right, Cuckoo, I don't mind guys who are quick on the uptake, you know. The hunter's tone becomes threatening as he addresses the entire group of newcomers. We're an elite group that supports the community. We don't need losers or morons. The hunter leader reveals the group's cruel intentions with a sinister laugh. Useless trash will be used as monster bait, you get me. The newcomers react with horror. One of the students from Rikudo's group panics, exclaiming, H-hunting was that dangerous a job. Beside him, an older student, Yamoka, remains silent and observant. This is a hell of a situation we've gotten ourselves into, Rikudo, Nishi says, his face grim. Rikudo replies with resignation, it can't be helped. Someone has to do it after all. As they walk, Rikudo reasons to himself that having been accepted into the community, they have no choice but to abide by the rules, no matter how unfair. He glances at the menacing hunters. Since these men are the ones carrying out this dangerous duty regularly, he concludes that the newcomers have no room to complain. Although it's a bit odd, Rikudo thinks aloud, his brow furrowed in thought. Nishi, walking beside him, asks what he means. Given everything, isn't it strange how high their morale and solidarity are? Rikudo asks. Nishi, not seeing the problem, replies that high morale is a good thing since they're heading to the surface. Yamoka overhears them and chimes in, reminding them of the reality awaiting them. Right, it must be significantly dangerous on the surface right now. One could die at any time. Rikudo continues his line of thought, wondering why the hunters are so positive about doing a job that anyone else would desperately try to push onto someone else. Rikudo's observation makes Nishi recall their time back at the school. Now that you mention it, he says, there was quite an argument over who would go out to get supplies. Well, I guess that Hizaki-san is just that incredible, right? Nishi concludes, attributing the hunters' high morale to their leader's powerful charisma. But Rikudo isn't convinced that's the only reason. Besides that, there's one other thing that's odd, he says, his suspicion growing. He begins to question the logic of their overall situation. The monster blocking the route to Emishima City. A worm was it, why doesn't it? Rikudo is cut off as the hunter leader turns around and yells at them. Hey newbies, what are you whispering about? The group arrives at a junction in the tunnel. The leader points towards a flight of stairs, announcing, we're heading to the surface from here. So it's time, the newcomers stammer, clearly terrified. Nishi tries to steel himself and his friends, muttering, we have to do it. The hunting party makes their way through the desolate, blood-stained subway station, weapons in hand. In near silence, the group ascends the escalator, their dark silhouettes moving towards the faint light of the surface. At the top of the stairs, the leader stops. Now then, up there is the exit to the surface, he says, gesturing towards the daylight. He turns to face the newcomers, holding up a flare gun. Listen up, you lot, the way this works is very simple. He explains their job as hunters. They use the flare to draw the wyvern's attention away from them, and during that window, they gather supplies from a target facility. Rikudo and Nishi listen intently as the leader adds a critical piece of information. But we don't have many flares left. We can't afford to waste them. Which means we need to know where the wyverns are and the exact number, you get it. The leader says with a predatory grin. Rikudo senses what's coming and asks, what are you trying to say? The leader's true intentions are finally laid bare. Step outside for a bit, newbies, he orders, sending a chill down their spines. You want to be our companions, don't you? The leader taunts. So show us you can be useful. The implication is clear. They are to act as scouts, or more accurately, disposable bait. The other hunters back up their leader's threat, sneering at the newcomers. Or what, are you gonna refuse? Gonna admit you're useless trash? What do we do, Rikudo? Nishi asks, his voice trembling slightly. These guys aren't right in the head after all. Rikudo realizes the gravity of their situation. At this rate, he thinks, it wouldn't be surprising if the hunters used them as disposable pawns to save their own skins. Seeing no other way out, Rikudo steps forward, making a decision. All right, for now, I'll go. Jinko looks over, surprised by his sudden declaration. That should be fine, right? Rikudo says, trying to sound confident. His friends are stunned into silence by his decision to volunteer. Just as Rikudo prepares to go alone, Jinko unexpectedly speaks up, also volunteering. Rikudo turns to her, surprised. Fayu's Jinko. The hunter leader questions Jinko's motives, calling her whimsical and asking why she's being nice to the newbies. That has nothing to do with it, she retorts coldly. Jinko explains her reasoning. It's just, scouting is a pretty crucial job. A small mistake with the diversion could lead to the whole team getting wiped out. I don't want to leave it to the newbies, that's all. In that case, I'll go too, Rikudo insists, refusing to back down. Nishi calls out his name, worried. Did you even hear me? Jinko says, annoyed. I'm saying you guys would only get in the way. She scoffs at him, or what, you think you're some kind of knight? Rikudo, unfazed by her taunt, calmly replies, it's nothing like that. Rikudo reveals his own strategic thinking. It's just, I think it's better to have two scouts. In a worst-case scenario, one can act as a decoy. He turns her own logic against her. If you want to increase the odds of a successful hunt, this way's smarter, don't you think? Jinko is taken aback, realizing he's just as pragmatic as she is. Caught off guard by his cold logic, Jinko can only manage a frustrated, whatever, do whatever you want, why don't you? She concedes. Having won the argument, Rikudo coolly replies, then I'll do just that. Nishi tries to volunteer to go with his friend, but Rikudo stops him. It's okay, Nishi, please just wait here. Rikudo looks back with a confident smile. I have no intention of being a disposable pawn. I'll definitely make it back alive. This is not just a promise, but a strategic move to secure Yamaoka's protection for his friends who remain behind. With the debate settled, Jinko takes the lead. All right, we're going, follow me. Rikudo quietly agrees and the two head up the stairs. About 15 minutes into their reconnaissance mission, Jinko notes that the narrow back alleys are safe since they are too narrow for the wyverns to pass through. Suddenly, Jinko stops, crouching down to examine something on the ground. Rikudo watches her, wondering what she's found. What are you doing? Rikudo asks. Jinko lets out an exasperated sigh, clearly annoyed by his lack of knowledge. Mandrake, she explains. That's what this weed is called. It's a type of monster, so don't touch it. If you carelessly pull it out, it lets out a huge scream. At close range, it could even kill you. I see, Rikudo says, recalling seeing similar screaming plants in movies and fiction. As Jinko examines the mandrake, Rikudo notices a familiar, faint red warning message appearing on the ground near it. Don't pull out. Rikudo connects the dots. This warning message is the same type he's seen before, like the one on the wall about other monsters. This confirms that these game-like warnings appear for all types of threats, not just certain ones. Jinko stands up, looking at Rikudo with disdain. She scoffs at his apparent ignorance of the mandrake. You really don't know anything, huh? Why did you even come along? She completely misreads his intentions, accusing him of trying to show off. If you were trying to look cool because I'm a girl, that's just gross, so would you stop? Rikudo calmly replies, I wasn't really doing it for you. Rikudo explains his true motive with a confident smile. It's so I can earn the trust of the community. I need to contribute, even if it means taking a risk. He continues, laying out his pragmatic worldview for her. The community's strength is an absolute necessity. This is like paying a necessary expense. His internal monologue reveals the final, crucial piece of his strategy. Fortunately, as long as Yamaoka-senpai is back there, that lot shouldn't be able to act carelessly. By volunteering, he ensured a trustworthy person remained to protect his friends. He concludes his explanation with a simple, confident question, leaving Jinko speechless. Logical, right? Stunned by his strategic depth, Jinko lets out a small, almost impressed laugh. Logical, huh, ha. It seems she's found a kindred spirit in the last person she expected. In an instant, the moment of understanding is shattered. An unseen force attacks with blinding speed, knocking Jinko violently off her feet as Rikudo looks on in shock. Jinko is sent flying down the alleyway by the powerful blow, her previous confidence gone. The peaceful reconnaissance mission has instantly turned into a fight for survival, leaving Rikudo to face the unknown threat. Fayus yells, laughable, even illogic has its limits, as she attacks with a fierce expression. In a flash, she executes a series of agile flips, easily moving past the guard. She lands perfectly on the ground, ready for her next move. Fayus leaps into the air, aiming a powerful kick at Rikudo. Rikudo struggles to block her fierce attack with a metal pipe. Undeterred, she spins around, using her momentum to continue her assault. Rikudo is taken aback by her incredible speed, thinking that her physical abilities are almost inhuman, especially since she has no combat form. He realizes that while he could fend her off, he is reluctant to hurt her with the steel pipe he's holding. Noticing his hesitation, Fayus charges at Rikudo as he lowers his guard. In an instant, she's upon him, grabbing his collar. With a swift move, she throws him completely off balance. Rikudo hits the ground hard, defeated by her overwhelming speed and skill. She pins him down, her hand stopping just short of striking his face. Holding a knife to his throat, Fayus looks down on Rikudo and coldly states, "Like I said, you're weak." She gets up and walks away, leaving Rikudo lying on the ground. With incredible agility, Fayus leaps onto a nearby wall. She scales the building with ease, moving like a shadow. Rikudo watches in stunned silence as Fayus leaps between buildings high above him. Landing on a rooftop, she turns back and calls him a hindrance, telling him to go back before he gets in her way. Rikudo shouts after her, "Wait, Fayus. No matter how strong you are, going alone is reckless." He sighs, realizing common sense doesn't apply to people like her. Fayus smirks, mocking him. "Ha, so full of yourself. How about you try putting me on the ground before saying that?" She dismisses him with a "see ya" and leaps away, telling him to return to the station as Rikudo helplessly calls her name. Rikudo stands alone, defeated and worried, a single drop of sweat on his face. Having left Rikudo behind, Fayus quickly reaches a rooftop vantage point and pulls out her binoculars to survey the area. She spots her targets, 3 large dragons on a distant building. No big deal, she sighs in relief, confident that their size makes them easy to avoid and the area is still safe. Looking at her map, Fayus feels confident. Alright, easy as pie, she thinks. The wyverns are large and easy to spot, so as long as she keeps her distance, she'll be fine. With the enemies located, she decides it's time to head back and begins leaping across the rooftops. As she makes her way back, she plans to procure some supplies along the way. She reflects that sending that idiot, Rikudo, back was the right choice, as he would only get in the way. She continues to navigate through the urban landscape with unmatched agility. She lands gracefully in an alley, continuing her path back. Consulting her map, she decides on a safe route back to the station, planning to cut through a narrow alley. As she walks through the alley, she suddenly senses something is wrong. A small, dark creature emerges from the shadows. To her shock, she finds herself surrounded by a group of small, aggressive red wyverns. She stands frozen in disbelief, exclaiming, what the hell are these? Miniature wyverns." She realizes she has never seen this type before. Her eyes land on broken eggshells nearby, and a dreadful realization dawns on her. She stares at the freshly broken shells, understanding that these creatures have just hatched. One of the miniature wyverns lets out a piercing screech and lunges at her. The sudden attack triggers a memory, and her expression turns to one of shock and panic. Rikudo's earlier warning echoes in her mind. No matter how strong you are, it's reckless to go alone. His words about common sense not applying to them flash through her mind, accompanied by a symbolic splash of blood, representing the deadly consequences of her pride. The scene shifts to a flashback of a younger Fayus in a school uniform, standing alone as she thinks, "I don't expect anything of anyone." Back in the present, she is swarmed by the shrieking wyverns in the narrow alley. She pants, desperately trying to fight them off, overwhelmed by their numbers. Her mind drifts back to her past as the creatures attack. She reflects on how everyone has always seen her as an alien because of her unique hair color, eye color, and her physical abilities that are far beyond human norms. One of the wyverns manages to land a vicious bite on her arm. The force of the attack throws her off balance, sending her stumbling backward. As she falls, her internal monologue concludes with a sense of utter despair. "There's no one on my side. There never has been." The flashback continues, showing her being ostracized by male classmates who gossip about her in the schoolyard. The scene then shifts to inside a classroom, where she is once again the subject of ridicule and gossip, this time from her female classmates, leaving her completely isolated. The girls in her class gossip about her, with one calling her an annoying poseur who is full of herself just because she's cute. Another girl adds that she heard Fayus's unique hair and eye color are natural, which she finds creepy. All the while, Fayus sits alone by the window, overhearing their cruel words. The rumors escalate, with students spreading malicious lies that she is whoring herself out. The flashback shifts to the schoolyard, where male students had been bullying her on the swings. However, showing her innate strength, Fayus easily overpowered her tormentor, who coughs on the ground in pain, shocked by her power. With a cold glare, she simply tells the bullies to get lost, and they flee in terror, apologizing as they run. Just then, a kind classmate approaches Fayus with concern, asking if she's okay. But Fayus, hardened by the constant torment, violently flinches away and yells, "Stay away from me." Her harsh rejection shocks the other girls, who are terrified by her outburst and call her a freak. The girls run away, leaving Fayus standing completely alone once again. She stands alone in the empty playground, coming to a painful conclusion. Right, I'm alien. Nobody wants me around. The flashback ends, returning to the present where Fayus lies on the ground, defeated by the wyverns. Her past trauma solidifies her present belief. That's why I won't expect anything from anyone. She struggles to push herself up, grunting in pain, her mind resolute. That's how I've lived my life so far, and that's not going to change. Suddenly, a different memory surfaces. A gentle woman with dark hair, Fayus's mother, lying in a hospital bed. She smiles kindly and tells a younger Fayus, "It's okay, Jinko, you have a kind heart. Someday you'll meet someone who understands you." Her mother's hopeful words, "I'm sure you'll become fast friends," are sharply contrasted with the present danger as a swarm of wyverns descends upon her. On the ground and surrounded, Fayus is helpless as the shrieking monsters close in. Just as a wyvern is about to deliver a final blow, she thinks with bitter cynicism, Mom was so full of shit. In the end, not a single person. Suddenly, a foot steps into the frame, interrupting her despair. In a shocking turn of events, Rikudo appears out of nowhere, smashing a wyvern with his pipe and saving her just in the nick of time. Fayus stares up at him, her eyes wide with utter disbelief and shock. She stammers, what are you doing here?" as Rikudo stands protectively over her, his back to her. Rikudo calmly tells her, "Stay there and keep still," as she lies on the ground, confused. He reaches into his jacket, saying, "It's a good thing I brought this from Ao, just in case." He pulls out a large, cylindrical object, a flare. Fayus looks on in horror as Rikudo ignites the flare, a sudden realization dawning on her. Holding the bright flare, Rikudo shouts, "This way, monsters," deliberately drawing the entire swarm of creatures towards himself and away from Fayus. As Rikudo begins to run with the flare, the wyverns immediately turn their attention to him, growling as they abandon Fayus. Fayus screams after him in a panic, "Why, you idiot?" These things gather around light sources, confirming his reckless plan is working. Ignoring her cries, the horde of miniature wyverns shrieks and takes to the air, swarming after Rikudo. As he runs, Rikudo thinks to himself, "Good, everything is going according to plan so far. Now, it comes down to whether I can lead them to that place." However, the wyverns are incredibly fast, and one of them quickly catches up, attacking him from the side. The creature lunges at him with terrifying speed, its glowing eyes fixed on him. He manages to fend off one of the creatures with his pipe, but the swarm is relentless. Another wyvern swoops in and slashes his cheek, drawing blood. He grits his teeth in pain, realizing, "They're fast. I'm not going to be able to lose them on foot." Despite the odds, he pushes forward, knowing that all he can do is run. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks, sensing a new threat that makes him question his plan. He looks up with a worried expression, realizing, no wonder they weren't all behind me. The sky above is now filled with even more monsters, including new, smaller black creatures flying alongside the red wyverns. He looks up in despair as he realizes the horrifying truth. They went to call in reinforcements. The massive, combined swarm of red and black monsters fills the sky, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The horde shrieks as it descends upon him, a terrifying wave of claws and teeth. Rikudo stands his ground, gripping his pipe tightly, bracing for the overwhelming assault. Back in the now-quiet alley, Fayus lies on the ground, panting and utterly exhausted. She stares in the direction Rikudo fled, seeing the distant glow of the flare, and wonders, "That guy, what does he plan to do after drawing the wyverns away from me?" A horrifying realization begins to dawn on her as she stares with wide, trembling eyes. It can't be, that idiot. Her mind flashes back to her earlier, dismissive thought, "Kurigane Rikudo, are you suicidal?" She now understands the terrible truth behind his actions. The sky is filled with a swarm of black, bat-like creatures, adding to the chaos. Rikudo pants as he runs, looking up at the swarm, realizing it's not a simple flock of birds but a deadly horde. He continues to flee as the combined swarm of red wyverns and black creatures descends upon him with terrifying shrieks. Injured and exhausted, he pushes himself to the limit, thinking, "It's just a little bit further," as he struggles to reach his destination. He grimaces, struggling to stay upright as the swarm closes in, pleading with his own body, "Come on, body, please hold out until then." But his plea comes too late, as one of the red wyverns lunges forward and lands a vicious, tearing blow. A spray of blood fills the air as he cries out in agony from the devastating attack. The force of the blow sends his body flying, completely overwhelmed by the monster's power. He collapses onto the pavement, his strength completely gone. Panting and defeated, he thinks with despair, my legs gave out. Is this really as far as I go? Rikudo Kurigane's face is pale with sweat and dirt, his eyes wide with shock and alarm as he faces an overwhelming threat. A pair of red, screeching wyverns dive towards him, their intent clearly hostile, trapping him in the narrow alley. Having survived the initial onslaught, Rikudo slumps against the wall, exhausted and catching his breath after the intense encounter. But a grim, determined smirk appears on his face. He looks up, thinking to himself, it looks like this is game over, checkmate. Suddenly, a piercing shriek echoes through the alley as one of the wyverns lets out a final cry of agony. The lethal sound wave blasts through the area, decimating the flock of smaller creatures that were also attacking him. The alley falls silent as the powerful sonic blast dissipates, leaving only destruction in its wake. Elsewhere, Fayus is startled by the tremendous noise, her eyes widening in surprise as she opens a door. The force of the sound hits her, causing her to cry out in pain as she's thrown off balance. She stumbles, covering her ears, as the painful ringing continues to assault her senses. Annoyed and worried, Fayus collects herself, wondering, this enormous sound, it couldn't be that idiot. Cursing under her breath, she immediately breaks into a run, heading toward the source of the chaos. The scene pans out over the city buildings as she rushes to the location. She arrives in the alley and stops dead in her tracks, shocked by the scene before her. Fayus stares down at a gruesome sight, the lifeless bodies of the two wyverns lying amidst rubble, with Rikudo collapsed on the ground nearby. She confirms her disbelief, murmuring, they're dead, as she looks at the slain monsters. Her attention then shifts to Rikudo, lying motionless on the pavement a short distance away. With concern, she whispers his name, Kurigane, Rikudo. Her eyes widen in horror as she sees the uprooted mandrake beside him. She realizes what he's done, thinking, to think he'd uproot the mandrake. You'll die if you hear the scream up close. I know I told you that, you idiot. A mix of shock, anger, and confusion washes over her as she processes his sacrifice. You gave your life to save me. Why would you do that? Just then, Rikudo's eye twitches, and he lets out a faint groan, showing signs of life. He slowly begins to push himself up, dazed and injured, but miraculously alive. Both Fayus and Rikudo are frozen in a state of utter shock, staring at each other in disbelief. Fayus stammers, unable to form words as she stares at the very much alive Rikudo, who looks back with a blank, confused expression, completely unaware of what just transpired. The tense silence is finally broken by a loud, echoing cry of pure, unadulterated shock. Still in shock, Fayus stammers, "WHWWI, how are you alive?" while Rikudo sits on the ground, equally stunned. She then notices the blood streaming from his ear and cries out, "Your ear is bleeding." Rikudo, unable to hear her, simply looks on in confusion. The horrifying realization dawns on her. "Why you didn't?" she exclaims, understanding the extreme measure he took to survive. The scene flashes back. In that instant, as the wyverns bore down on him, Rikudo made a desperate gamble. Just before uprooting the mandrake, he slammed his hands over his ears, using the intense air pressure to deliberately rupture his own eardrums. In agony but with grim determination, he then seized the deadly plant, ready to unleash its power. By sacrificing his hearing beforehand, he was able to uproot the mandrake and survive its lethal shriek of death, turning it into a weapon. Back in the present, Fayus stares in utter horror, whispering to herself, he ruptured his own. As Rikudo touches his bleeding ear, a separate thought intrudes. Just how insanely ballsy is this guy? Fayus's shock quickly turns to fury. She clenches her fist, her body trembling with rage. She explodes, yelling, "How are you insane?" at the still confused Rikudo, who can't hear a word she's saying. Despite her anger, she helps him to his feet, supporting him as he leans on a pipe for a cane. "You're such an idiot," she mutters, dragging him along. She continues scolding him as they walk away. "Sure, your eardrums will recover, but who goes that far for a stranger?" Rikudo remains oblivious to her rant. Exasperated, she yells, "Ah geez, you can't even hear me, you pain in the ass." She lets out a heavy sigh, her anger giving way to a complex mix of emotions. Looking at his back, she thinks, honestly, but someone like you, I might be able to tell. She decides to confide in him, to tell him how it all started. The secret she holds is the answer to the world's most terrifying question. Why did monsters appear in this world? Fayus looks at Rikudo with newfound resolve, believing she can tell him the reason for that. She strengthens her grip, wrestling with her decision. I can tell him everything, right? In a brief cutaway, a hand holds a simple stone cross, a voice crying out for their mom. As Fayus and Rikudo walk on, the narration declares that the door to the truth is beginning to open. Meanwhile, a group of survivors in front of a modern building are alerted to the danger. One of them shouts in alarm, "Young wyverns." A man runs up to a large, blonde-haired man named Ijima, reporting frantically, "Ijima-san, this is really bad." Ijima tells him to calm down. Ijima looks thoughtful, processing the news. "Still, it does mean that people will die if we keep doing things the way we have. Well, it looks like we'll need to rethink our hunting methods." But then his serious expression breaks into a wide, impressed grin. He pats a silent Rikudo on the back, praising him. "Anyway, great job. Heh, way to go, kid." Ijima continues to praise him, slapping his back enthusiastically. I like your crazy. I'll be sure to add a little something to your assessment. Fayus yells from the side, hey, he's injured, stop smacking him. Two other students, the friendly archer and a younger blonde boy, look on with concern. The archer thinks to himself, Kukurigane-senpai, honestly, you're always doing such reckless things. You can't even hear me right now, huh? Rikudo stands silently, his eyes closed as he takes in the moment, having finally earned his place among the survivors. Time passes. 2 weeks after joining the community, the group, now including Rikudo and Fayus, walks together as an established team. Rikudo reflects on his decision. Breaking my ears that day was worth it. We became an existence he had to take his hat off to. His actions accomplished the initial objective, earning the trust of the community. He continues his thoughts. Since then, we're no longer faced with a comparatively absurd attitude. The group is seen using flares, a sign of their improved cooperation and resources. However, the life of a hunter is never safe. Rikudo acknowledges, however, danger is a constant companion in a hunter's work. The group is shown pulling a cart of supplies through a monster-infested street. We walk alongside death on a daily basis. The hunters ready their weapons as small, red wyverns swarm around them. Even the powerful Ijima is seen in the thick of the fight, swinging his club with fierce determination. Rikudo notes the change in his other companion, Fayus Jinko. She seems to have acknowledged us as well. Since then, she has fought alongside us. The two now fight seamlessly together, watching each other's backs. I've gained another reliable comrade, Rikudo thinks with satisfaction. The narration shifts to other members. Takebana and Kyuju tell us their job is tough, but they seem to be doing what they can as diggers. The two girls look exhausted from their labor. At night, the survivors gather around a fire. It's not easy, this life of one rough day after another, but everyone works together. We simply continue surviving. The core group, including Rikudo, Fayus, the archer, Takebana and Kyuju, share a quiet moment of camaraderie. But Rikudo feels a sense of unease beneath the surface. It's just that, one thing bothers me. The strangely unsettling feeling going around in the community. He notices other survivors sitting apart, their faces etched with gloom and despair. I haven't been able to identify the origin of that feeling. Rikudo observes another survivor looking on with a suspicious, calculating expression. As time marches on, the archer approaches Rikudo while they walk through a corridor. The archer asks with genuine concern, by the way, Rikudo, your ears, are they all right? Rikudo, carrying his pipe cane, replies, yeah, no problem. Rikudo admits, it's still a bit hard to hear though. The archer is relieved. I see, I'm glad they're healing. The archer then wonders aloud, but anyway, how much longer is this gonna continue, this underground life? Rikudo casually responds, who knows? The archer is taken aback by his nonchalant answer, but is then distracted by a scene down the hall. Who knows? He sees Fayus confronted by a small group. He recognizes her, Fayus Jinko. She's talking to someone. Fayus is visibly angry, telling the other girls, I already said I don't want it. Two women try to force a drink on her. One smirks while the other insists, what are you even saying? Anyway, drink this. One of the women bursts out in frustration, just stop. At these times, every time, one of us gets that, I just get so fed up with everything. It's like you're shoving this inescapable reality in our faces. The woman continues to vent her frustrations at Fayus. You don't know what it's like, how we feel. A hunter like you. Fayus remains silent, her expression unreadable. The archer sees the confrontation and rushes over. Oh boy, what's wrong? Is there some kind of trouble? He asks, concerned. Fayus quickly dismisses the situation, walking past him and Rikudo. No problem, don't worry about it, she says, though a faint blush betrays her stoic facade. The archer is left slightly confused. The archer watches her walk away and thinks to himself, no problem, I didn't notice when we first met her, but she's kind of like Rikudo when it comes to this sort of thing. He then turns his attention to the general mood of the survivors. Still, it's odd, he says to Rikudo. Rikudo asks, odd, what is? The archer elaborates, Ijima and the others are almost festive. He recalls seeing Ijima and another man looking cheerful. Now that you mention it, that uncle seems to be in a good mood. Conversely, people are gloomy, he continues, remembering the somber faces of other survivors. On top of which, like those women just now, some people are seething. The atmosphere in the community seems strange somehow. Is something happening soon? Rikudo replies, indeed, because it's about time for bonuses. The archer is confused. Bonuses. He remembers overhearing the uncles talking about it, while a memory of a smiling, red-haired man, Hizaki-san, flashes in his mind. Rikudo explains that Hizaki-san rewards guys with good performance. Fayus interrupts them, getting Rikudo's attention. More importantly, Kurigane Rikudo, there's something I want to talk to you about. The archer comically panics. Oh boy, could she be about to profess her love? She gets close to Rikudo, her expression serious. I've been watching you these past 2 weeks. You're probably trustworthy. The archer continues to sweat, completely misreading the situation. Having made her decision, Fayus turns and says, let's go somewhere else. Follow me. Elsewhere among the rubble, Takebana checks on her friend. Katon Sichai, is your leg all right? Kyuju, also known as Katon, reassures her. Why yeah, it's much better. Katon touches her bandaged ankle. Thanks to the bandages Hizaki-san brought, I was able to perform first aid. I think I'll be able to walk soon. Takebana exclaims. Thank goodness Tilda I straight up panicked when you hurt your leg. Takebana gushes with admiration, but thank goodness Hizaki-san is a super good person. Katon agrees wholeheartedly. Yeah, really. A flashback shows the smiling Hizaki-san approaching the two girls after Katon's injury. As I thought, digging is too hard for girls. Please rest assured. He offers them a seemingly kind proposition. I'll transfer the two of you to rice cooking. I'll see that it's expedited. His smile is wide and reassuring, but holds an unsettling undertone. Back in the present, Takebana celebrates their good fortune. Now we're officially rice cookers Tilda. No more heinous digging for us Tilda. Katon can only offer a week. That's good I guess. While Takebana cheers, Katon feels a sense of unease. But, what is this? She wonders, watching her friend's oblivious celebration. She notices the other survivors staring at them. The way the others are looking at us. Why in the world is there pity in their gazes? Their expressions are not of envy, but of sorrow. Takebana, oblivious, calls out, Right, Katon Shichai, let's go back to the others, and runs off. Katon follows, calling, slow down, Sakura-chan. This reveals Takebana's first name is Sakura. The two girls return to the main area, announcing, We're back Tilda. The archer greets them cheerfully. Oh, you three are back. Takebana, Kyuju, you're back huh? Rikudo and Fayus look over as they arrive. Rikudo turns back to Fayus. So, Fayus, what do you want to talk to me about? Fayus sighs. I'd have preferred to talk to you alone, but, well, I guess the rest of you are all right. Fayus looks at the group and asks a question that stops everyone in their tracks. Wouldn't you like to know the truth behind the great calamity? Rikudo and the archer are stunned into silence. In other words, the origin. The archer, bewildered, stammers, why you know about it. Fayus clarifies, not everything though, but I'll tell you what I'm nearly certain about. She makes a stunning declaration to the entire group. This great disaster, most likely, a certain man is involved. With everyone hanging on her every word, she looks off into the distance, preparing to reveal the name. That man's name is Kurigane Sorato. As she speaks his name, an image of a sinister, white-haired young man with a cruel smile flashes through the scene. Rikudo's face contorts in shock. The name echoes through the quiet encampment, a name that clearly holds a dark meaning for Rikudo. Fayus looks at Rikudo, connecting the dots. I see, so you're related to him. No wonder you have the same surname. The archer adds, I didn't know you had an older brother, Rikudo, foster brother, but yeah. The archer recalls Rikudo's past suffering. But what a horrible bastard, that Sorato guy, to think he'd driven you into a corner that badly. Rikudo dismisses it coldly. It's in the past, it doesn't matter now. Kyuju also remembers, flashing back to a scene of Sorato standing over a beaten Rikudo. She thinks his name with a sense of dread, Sorato, Kun. Rikudo presses Fayus, needing to know more. More importantly, you said he's involved with the great calamity. What did you mean by that, Fayus? It's so outlandish that I can't wrap my head around it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more awesome stories.